A military search party is deep in the woods, looking for what they assume is a cold, fresh corpse. But instead of a dead body, they find our guy sitting cross-legged, radiating this highly toxic green neon vapor that looks like a spilled energy drink, which has their platoon leader sweating through his glasses. A grunt lunges with a knife, but tae-ju doesn't even blink. He just catches the blade bare-handed and snaps it, leaving the entire squad staring with their mouths open like they just saw a magic trick go horribly wrong. He stares at his own palm, realizing that the ancient Murim cheat code he just inherited actually worked, and he gives them this absolutely devious green-eyed smile. But to understand how this terminal, bottom-tier nobody turned into a walking biohazard, we need to go back to the beginning. We start at the Mount Seorak military outpost, where a bunch of soldiers are tracking down a runner, and our main character, Kim Tae-ju, is currently sprinting through the woods wondering what the hell he even did to deserve this. He's panting so hard his lungs are basically begging for a subscription to oxygen, while his squad leader yells at him to stop running like they're playing a friendly game of tag. Suddenly, a flash of steel cuts through the trees, and Tae-ju's chest splits open. His heart starts failing him again, because of course his body chose this exact moment to crash. He drops to his knees on the edge of a cliff, coughing up blood like he just drank a gallon of battery acid, while his squad leader walks up behind him with the smug energy of a Twitter user who just won a fake argument. This guy is First Lieutenant Jang In-dong, a low-tier awakened warrior who clearly got his glasses from a discount bin. He stands over Tae-ju, mocking him because our guy is a mana rejector, which is basically this world's version of a system error. Tae-ju screams, asking why his own comrades are doing this to him, and Jang just chuckles, telling him that trash like him should have died a long time ago. He unsheathes his sword, mentioning that Tae-ju living to 29 was a major inconvenience for Her Excellency. Tae-ju's hand shakes as he reaches for his empty holster, realizing exactly who is pulling the strings. Her Excellency is Honda Mitsui, Tae-ju's lovely stepmother, who definitely does not have his best interests at heart. Jang raises his sword, ready to deliver the final blow, telling him to just hurry up and die already. The blade slices down, spilling dark blood as Tae-ju is thrown off the cliff face while Jang smiles, muttering that the family estate is finally going to Mitsui's 2 biological sons. He watches Tae-ju plummet into the foggy abyss, assuming the trash has been successfully taken out. Now, to explain why this world is so incredibly messed up, we have to flash back 300 years to the year 2026. On that day, the sun was completely blotted out by a massive solar eclipse, and a cosmic force called mana descended upon the Earth like a force system update. The result? 90% of the human population was wiped out instantly because their bodies couldn't handle the patch. Cities crumbled, the climate went completely feral, and modern civilization basically took a permanent L. Fast forward 300 years to 2326, where the survivors have rebuilt society, but with a highly toxic class system. Since mutated monsters and poisonous herbs are everywhere, humanity structured itself entirely around mana aptitude. At the top, you have the awakened elites with cool face tattoos. At the absolute bottom, you have the rejectors, people whose bodies treat mana like actual toxic waste. Tae-ju's father, Brigadier General Kim Ung-bang, is a masterclass awakened god, while Tae-ju, the eldest son, is a useless rejector who has spent his entire life slowly dying of mana poisoning. But as Tae-ju lies bleeding out at the bottom of the ravine, his mind drifts into a weird cosmic subspace. He hears a voice complaining about how the celestial realm looks like a bizarre mix of an ancient estate and a modern city. Tae-ju opens his eyes, staring at his own back, totally confused about why he isn't dead yet. He looks up and sees a majestic old man with long silver hair floating in the middle of a galaxy, who tells him to stand up and show his face. The old man uses a swirl of green energy to lift Tae-ju into the air, and as their faces align, the old man lets out a surprised, "Oh?" This silver-haired senior is Tang Gunak, the legendary absolute poison demon and head of the Sichuan Tang clan. In his past life, he was the absolute peak of poisons and hidden daggers, a man who single-handedly defended his world when a demonic cult threatened to consume everything. He was an absolute menace, controlling thousands of blades with his mind, but during his final years, as he sat in deep meditation to achieve ethereal ascent, which is just a fancy Murim term for ascending to creative mode, something went completely off the rails. Because Tae-ju and Tang Gunak share the exact same soul across different dimensions, their spirits got tangled up during the ascent. The moment they touch, centuries of Tang Gunak's memories begin flooding straight into Tae-ju's brain. The old man laughs, realizing that this sick, pathetic kid is actually his modern-day counterpart. He looks at Tae-ju's memories, seeing how the maids and soldiers treated him like absolute garbage, and how his own family looked down on him his entire life just because he was born a rejector. A single blue drop of soul essence falls into their shared mental lake, and Tangunok tells him to take all of his experience, his martial arts, and his clinical knowledge. He promises that if tae-ju trains with these memories, he will become the absolute undisputed ruler of his new world. With a massive burst of blinding white light, Tangunok fades away, telling him to live his life however he damn well pleases. Tae-ju gasps, his physical body waking up at the bottom of the ravine, covered in blood and dirt. He blinks, whispering the old man's name in absolute shock. He sits up, realizing that his head is currently packed with centuries of forbidden martial arts knowledge. He drags himself forward, knowing that if he wants to survive the next 10 minutes, he needs a plan. And the plan is simple: master the primordial chaos absolute poison spirit art, a style that actually grows stronger the more poison you put into your body. Fortunately for him, this post-apocalyptic forest is literally covered in mutated, highly toxic weeds. He grabs a handful of black, spiked herbs, his body shivering from the sheer pain of his wounds. He doesn't hesitate, he stuffs the deadly plants straight into his mouth and starts chewing, driven by pure survival instinct. He needs to convert this lethal poison into internal chi, forming a poison essence right inside his dantian. If he can do that, he can literally rewrite his own biology and break the chains of being a rejector. His eyes snap open, glowing with a fierce green light, as he vows to pay back his betrayers tenfold, starting with Lieutenant Jang. Meanwhile, back at the top of the cliff, the moon is high, and Lieutenant Jang's voice echoes through the dark. He orders his squad to comb the ravine and confirm the body, because leaving a paper trail is a massive rookie mistake. He walks down, complaining about why it's taking so long to find one dying cripple. Suddenly, a soldier yells that he found him, but his voice is shaking. They shine their flashlights on tae-ju, who is surrounded by a swirling vortex of green spiritual energy. Jang is completely baffled, realizing this isn't a normal mana reaction. Our guy is cultivating pure poison energy. He panics, ordering his men to put tae-ju down before things get annoying. A soldier draws his baton and charges, his feet kicking up dust as he closes the distance. Tae-ju keeps his eyes closed, his hand quietly reaching into his pocket. As the soldier swings, tae-ju moves like a ghost, shattering the weapon and sending a shockwave of green chi through the air. The soldiers freeze, their brains completely short-circuiting at what they just witnessed. Tae-ju looks at his glowing green hand, amazed at how fluidly the internal energy flows through his veins. He clenches his fist, feeling the raw power of a Murim master settling into his bones. He looks up at his former squad, telling them it's time to settle the bill. "Nice to see you again," he says, his smile dripping with absolute malice. Jang tries to play it cool, asking where he got this sudden confidence since he doesn't even have an awakened face tattoo. Tae-ju just chuckles, realizing how limited these modern soldiers are. See, in this world, awakened users are ranked from master to beginner, and their rank is literally stamped on their faces like a barcode. Lieutenant Jang is just a beginner rank, which in Murim terms makes him a third-rate martial arts NPC. Tae-ju tells him his power is nothing special, which immediately triggers Jang's fragile ego. Tae-ju slips 3 gold coins between his fingers, his green chi flare-up becoming even more intense. Jang laughs, asking if he's planning to buy his way out of a beating with spare change. He orders his entire squad to rush him at once, determined to end this weird show. Tae-ju remains calm, his fist tightly gripping the coins as the dark energy pools in his palm. Thanks to Tangunok's muscle memory, his mind is as still as deep water. Even if this modern world rejects him, the legacy of the poison demon is etched into his very soul. He locks his gaze on the incoming squad, his eyes narrowing. With a sudden flick of his wrist, he executes the Poison Blade Art 1/. The 3 gold coins fly through the air, trailing sharp green lines of lethal chi. The coins slice clean through the soldiers' weapons and armor, sending them flying like bowling pins. It's a complete wipeout. The remaining soldiers scream as a phantom preview of green blades cuts down their ranks. Before Jang can even process his squad being deleted, Tae-ju clenches his fist, channeling his chi into his palm. He lunges forward, striking Jang straight in the chest with the blood-poisoned palm. The green impact explodes outward, shattering Jang's glasses and sending a wave of toxic energy straight to his heart. The last standing soldier watches in absolute horror as his commander is folded in a single strike. Desperate, the soldier pulls out a high-tech hand cannon, screaming in panic. He fires point-blank at Tae-ju's head. The gun lets out a massive muzzle flash, lighting up the dark forest. But Tae-ju just tilts his head, the bullet whizzing past his ear as the toxic wind whips around him. "Too slow," he whispers, his eyes cold and lifeless. He takes a step forward, his boots crushing the dirt. Jang is on the ground, coughing up black fluid, begging to know what kind of curse tae-ju just put on him. Tae-ju looks down on him, noting that even awakened elites are completely helpless against ancient poisons. Jang trembles, stammering about how a rejector with no face tattoo could possibly use high-level magic. Tae-ju sighs, mockingly stating that calling his martial arts magic is a major insult to the Tang clan. Jang begins weeping, black veins spreading across his face as he begs for his life. Tae-ju doesn't say a word, he just grabs Jang by the throat and lifts him off the ground with one hand. Jang gasps for air, his eyes bulging as the toxic poison completely liquefies his internal organs. He thrashes around, his legs kicking uselessly in the air. In a desperate, raspy voice, he asks Tae-ju if he has any idea who is backing this hit. He tries to warn him that Honda Mitsui will hunt him to the ends of the earth, but his throat fills with blood. Tae-ju's green eyes flare with terrifying intensity as he squeezes. With a wet snap, Jang goes limp, and Tae-ju drops his lifeless body into the dirt. He wipes his hands, letting out a dark chuckle. He has absolutely no intention of going down quietly. We then cut to Paju, a small, barren domain in the Sahan Empire, which was formed by merging Korea, China, and Japan. Inside a luxurious, high-ceilinged office, a military report is being delivered. An officer informs the general that there was a highly suspicious assassination attempt within the unit. He explains that Lieutenant Kim Tae-ju was attacked during a recon mission and went missing after falling from a cliff. He adds that the attackers, Lieutenant Jang and his squad, were reportedly eaten by monsters while trying to flee. The officer notes that their investigation points directly to officers affiliated with the Japanese faction. The general's eyes narrow, his dark face tightening with immediate realization. He buries his face in his hands, muttering the name Mitsui with deep frustration. See, Honda Mitsui is the daughter of an incredibly wealthy Japanese family, and she has been waiting for her sickly stepson to die for years. Since Tae-ju managed to survive to 29 despite being a rejector, she finally lost her patience and ordered the hit. She wants to clear the path so her own 2 healthy sons can inherit the entire Paju domain. The general sighs, admitting that while this is a serious crime, Paju is currently in a massive financial crisis. He clasps his hands, realizing he has no choice but to cover up his own son's murder. He tells the officer to bury the investigation and dismisses him. The doors slam shut, leaving the cold-hearted father alone in his golden office. He justifies his decision, thinking that Tae-ju was going to die of his illness very soon anyway. He decides it's much better to overlook the assassination for the sake of his 2 remaining healthy sons. He looks out the window, cold and indifferent, whispering that he won't look for Tae-ju. Welcome to Gurye, the ultimate goldmine of the post-apocalyptic world. Our guy Tae-ju is currently standing on a cliffside, enjoying a spectacular view of the city. But he is not here on vacation. He is carrying a backpack that looks like it weighs more than a compact car. The middle-aged man next to him is his current boss, a porter who is deeply concerned that Tae-ju is too gentle for this line of work. He immediately goes into full history teacher mode, explaining how this city used to be a quiet little countryside town 300 years ago. But when the Empire absorbed it, they realized the nearby mountain of Jirisan was basically a high-tier monster spawner. So the government did what any smart administration does. They cut taxes and legalized shady business to lure in hunters. Now, it is a bustling hub where 20% of the Empire's monster parts are traded, attracting anyone desperate for a quick payday. Tae-ju just smiles and nods, playing the role of the clueless, grateful rookie perfectly. He notes that his new boss talks a lot, but he is a genuinely decent guy who actually looks out for his crew. But behind that polite smile, Tae-ju's internal monologue is on a completely different channel. He remembers exactly why he is here. He survived a military death squad sent by his own stepmother. He cut all ties with his family, discharged himself from the service, and needed a place where he could grind his stats in absolute peace. Gurye is perfect because the imperial government has almost zero authority here, making it impossible for his family to track him. If they try to search for a sickly, powerless rejector in a city of lawless mercenaries, they are going to have a very bad time. Plus, Jirisan is packed with venomous beasts and toxic herbs, which is basically a Michelin star buffet for a poison cultivator. He still finds the term martial arts a bit weird to say out loud, considering he was a normal guy just a month ago. But merging souls with Tonggunak, the literal absolute poison demon of another dimension, is the kind of cheat code you do not question. For now, he is staying low, working as a porter to build up his funds and his stamina before making his next move. The boss interrupts his thoughts, asking him who he thinks is the strongest fighter in their current escort group. He points toward Lee Hanul, a young female swordsman walking ahead. She is a full professional with a regular rank. tae-ju analyzes her. Regular rank means she is a full tier above the corrupt lieutenant he melted back in the forest, but as he watches her, he notices something is extremely wrong with the way her mana is flowing. Before anyone can react, her eyes roll back and she faceplants into the dirt as a massive blood-red mosquito buzzes past. tae-ju looks at the tiny bug with a face that says, "You have got to be kidding me." A red-haired mage steps up instantly, her staff lighting up with a dangerous orange glow as she yells for everyone to get back. She is not taking any chances with a mutant insect. She casts a fireball, launching a massive sphere of concentrated flame directly into the foliage. The impact detonates with enough force to clear the entire path, leaving a smoking crater in the dirt. tae-ju asks his boss why everyone is treating a single bug like it is a nuclear threat. The boss explains that if that specific mutant mosquito bites you, your mana is instantly neutralized, causing you to faint on the spot. tae-ju kneels down beside the unconscious swordsman, checking her pulse while his hand glows with a faint green energy. He channels his poison energy to inspect her condition, realizing this is not just some random mutation. The physical reaction is identical to a legendary poison from his ancestral memories. The party leader is visibly shaking, complaining that this area was supposed to be completely clear of mutant insects. Since they did not bring any protective bug gear, they decide the safest option is to abandon the run and pull back. But before they can turn around, the tall grass nearby starts rustling loudly. The party leader's face goes completely pale as he freezes in his tracks. He draws his heavy sword, screaming at everyone to get into a defensive formation. The bushes part, and out hops a long-tailed sack rabbit, a harmless little herbivore that sits at the bottom of the food chain. The entire group lets out a massive sigh of relief, with the red-haired mage even giggling at how tense they all are. The leader laughs, telling everyone to relax and start moving back down the mountain. And then, a massive rusted blade slices clean through his chest from behind. The red-haired mage's laughter dies instantly as blood splatters across her face. A giant, green-skinned arm slams the leader's body into the ground like a broken toy. It is a pack of orcs, and they do not look like the slow, stupid beasts the textbooks describe. They let out a coordinated war cry that echoes through the trees, completely surrounding the group. The mage steps forward, her hands bursting into flames as she tells the survivors to grab the wounded and run while she holds the line. The boss turns to run, yelling at tae-ju to get moving before they get flanked. But tae-ju just sits there calmly, telling his boss to go ahead without him. The boss looks at him like he has lost his mind, pointing out that this is a high-level monster fight they have no business being in. tae-ju effortlessly lifts the unconscious swordsman with one hand and drapes her over the boss's shoulders. He tells him there is no time to argue and that he will just stay back to provide some basic distraction. The boss, assuming tae-ju is just an incredibly brave and stupid kid, tells him not to dare die before running off. tae-ju watches the battle unfold, his eyes narrowing as he notices the orcs are moving in a synchronized flank. The mage fires a lance of concentrated heat, burning through the frontline monsters with sheer brute force. But she is completely focused on her own fight, unaware that one of the beasts has slipped through the trees toward the fleeing porters. She spots it at the last second, pivoting on her heel with incredible speed. She swings her staff, pouring the rest of her mana into a defensive spell. A wall of intense fire erupts, completely blocking the path and incinerating the flanking monster. tae-ju, standing in the brush, covers his face from the intense heat wave. He realizes that while her spell was powerful, she just committed the ultimate amateur mistake. By dumping all her energy into a single defensive wall, she left herself completely open. And right behind her, a massive orc rises from the shadows, its axe raised to cleave her in two. Waterfalls cascade into the sky, cherry blossoms drift through the air, and the scenery is absolutely breathtaking. This is the legendary Immortal Realm, and Tangunak has been living here for a month. He reflects on how his soul fusion with tae-ju gave him access to modern knowledge about Earth, technology, and science. That bizarre modern perspective allowed him to break through his final bottleneck and achieve true immortality. He shed his mortal body and ascended to the heavens, expecting a realm of eternal peace and supreme wisdom. He clenches his fist, his face twitching with absolute, unbridled fury. He should have known better. He really should have known, because the Divine Realm is not a paradise. It is a toxic, high-tier multiplayer lobby populated entirely by absolute lunatics. Ancient sect founders and legendary martial gods are flying around on swords, screaming insults and griefing each other for fun. They have zero human decency, spending their eternal lives pulling petty pranks and starting random fistfights. Tangunak sighs, trying to look on the bright side of things. At least his connection to tae-ju allowed him to escape the mortal world. He wonders how his modern soulmate is doing back on Earth. He remembers how tae-ju lived a miserable life as a weak, despised outcast while he was ruling the Murim world. He genuinely hopes tae-ju is using his poison techniques to find some real happiness and stand above his enemies. He smiles, promising himself that if they ever meet again, he will have plenty of new, terrifying techniques to teach him. Suddenly, a wooden shoe flies out of nowhere and smacks him directly in the back of the head. A rival swordmaster floats by on a flying blade, laughing hysterically and asking him how he likes the taste of a real telekinetic sword. Tongunok's face turns red as he draws his daggers, screaming that he is going to murder the guy as he chases him across the sky. Back in the brutal reality of Jiri, the red-haired mage is staring death in the face as the giant axe swings down. She braces for the impact, closing her eyes as she prepares for the end. The blade slices through the air, mere inches from her neck. But before it can connect, tae-ju moves like an absolute ghost, his boots leaving a trail of green light. He delivers a brutal, high-speed kick directly to her ribs, sending her flying out of the blast zone. It is not the most elegant rescue, but a broken rib is significantly better than being split in half. Tae-ju lands smoothly, his eyes glowing with a cold, venomous green light. He decides it is the perfect time to test a new wide-area technique he just unlocked. He flips a handful of ordinary gold coins into the air, channeling his toxic energy directly into the metal. The coins spin rapidly, transforming into razor-sharp buzzsaws of pure green poison. With a single gesture, he sends them raining down, the metal slicing through the remaining orc pack like paper. The entire squad is neutralized in less than a second, leaving the battlefield completely silent. He looks down at the red-haired mage, who was knocked out cold by the force of his rescue kick. He is glad she is asleep. If anyone saw a faceless, unawakened porter wiping out a high-level orc raid, his peaceful grinding life would be over. He decides to clean up the area and slip away before the military search parties arrive to investigate the magic signatures. He smiles, thinking about how his life has completely transformed since he was a dying rejector just a month ago. But then, his pragmatic, money-loving side takes over as he opens his waist pouch. He drops to his knees and starts picking up his gold coins one by one, grumbling about how inconvenient hidden weapons are. Since gold coins are expensive to buy, leaving them behind is basically throwing his salary into the dirt. He complains that the automatic coin retrieval technique is locked until he reaches the 7th star of his cultivation. He counts them carefully, realizing he is missing exactly one coin, which is currently embedded deep in a tree trunk. As he pries the coin loose, a mutant 3-striped mosquito buzzes directly toward his face. He snatches it out of the air with his bare hand, his grip solid and effortless. He looks at the insect, remembering how it instantly neutralized a professional regular rank adventurer. This is the exact bug that caused the vanguard to faint. Instead of crushing it, he places the mosquito on the back of his hand, letting its glowing red stinger sink into his skin. As the potent venom enters his bloodstream, he monitors the reaction, feeling his internal energy begin to scatter. He realizes his theory was entirely correct. This modern mutation is structurally identical to a classic Murim poison. It is an energy-scattering toxin that temporarily shuts down the target's energy pathways. But while the modern world thinks there is no cure, tae-ju has the complete chemical database of the Tang clan in his head. He realizes that if he can figure out the exact biological compounds of this insect, he can synthesize a perfect antidote. And since he needs to know the exact ingredients, he does the only logical thing. He pops the massive, blood-filled mutant bug into his mouth and swallows it whole. He licks his lips, analyzing the flavor profile and realizing he can easily find similar herbs on Jirison to make a cure. A huge grin spreads across his face as he realizes he is sitting on an absolute goldmine. Selling an antidote for an incurable, squad-wiping poison to wealthy hunters is basically a license to print money, but his financial daydream is abruptly cut short as a massive, towering shadow falls over him. He looks up to find a giant red-eyed elite orc standing right behind him, its heavy weapon raised to strike. So, our guy is currently staring at a literal giant. The elite orc glares with a glowing red eye, looking like it just lost a promotional match and wants to take it out on our guy's skull. And this is not your typical green-skinned grunt. It towers over tae-ju, radiating pure physical pressure. Tae-ju swallows hard, realizing this is an elite, a speaking monster. He remembers the weird patterns lately. First the mosquitoes, then a whole raid party, and now a talking elite in the wrong zone. Something on this mountain is playing with the spawn rates. The orc does not wait for a dialogue option. It raises a massive axe and swings. The blade crashes down with terrifying force. The impact splits the ground, carving a literal trench straight through the dirt. tae-ju barely dodges back, sweat dripping down his face. This thing's attack power is at least expert rank. It is a literal walking stat check. He slips 3 gold coins between his fingers, deciding it is time to test the monster's armor before committing to a full fight. He executes Single Flash, launching the gold coins at the monster's face. The coins hit the orc's head, but instead of slicing, they just spark off its skin like cheap fireworks. The metal shatters completely. tae-ju's eyes narrow. His strongest hidden weapon style did absolutely nothing. His coin toss technique just got completely countered by a massive defense stat. He realizes physical slicing won't work, meaning his coin shower is useless. He needs to use his blood seal poison palm and hope the internal toxic damage can ignore the armor. The orc roars, completely unimpressed by the coin trick. tae-ju sweats, instantly getting mad at himself for hesitating in front of an opponent. He remembers Tangunak and feels embarrassed. The legendary poison demon would probably disown him if he saw him playing this defensively. He clenches his fist as toxic green energy wraps around his hand. He charges forward, throwing away the cowardly distance game. He strikes with the blood seal poison palm, aiming straight for the center mass. The orc swings its heavy axe to meet him. The toxic palm collides with the giant blade, causing a massive clash of green energy. tae-ju gets pushed back, coughing up a bit of blood from the raw shockwave. A massive explosion of green energy erupts, shaking the entire forest canopy. As the dust settles, the orc's giant axe hits the dirt. But the monster is still standing. It glares down at tae-ju, who is forced onto one knee, looking completely outmatched. tae-ju clicks his tongue. The strike was too shallow. He could not get through the thick muscle layer to inject the poison. He prepares to go all out and grind the beast's health bar down, no matter how many hits it takes. Suddenly, a bright red slicing line cuts across the monster. In a single flash, the giant elite orc is diced into perfect, clean cubes. tae-ju freezes, his eyes wide in absolute shock. A mysterious swordsman stands behind the carcass. tae-ju realizes this guy is a master rank, someone who can clear an elite like a common mob. tae-ju panics internally, wondering what excuse he can make to explain why an unawakened porter is sitting in the middle of a high-level boss zone. The swordsman turns, pointing his blade at the dead orcs scattered around. He asks if tae-ju did all this. He notes tae-ju has no rank tattoo and calls him a piece of trash, clearly dismissing any possibility of him being a fighter. tae-ju keeps his mouth shut, choosing his words very carefully. One wrong slip, and his secret identity is completely cooked. The man is Lee Jung-hak, Gurye Vigilante Captain and Nogodan Guildmaster. He basically runs public security in this lawless city. tae-ju immediately plays the helpless victim card, bowing his head and thanking him for the rescue. Right on cue, the porter boss, the red-haired mage, and another guild member run back. The boss runs up calling his name, but immediately checks on the fainted swordsman instead of him. Professional companion priorities. The boss looks surprised when tae-ju points toward the swordsman. The guild subordinates apologize to Lee Jung-hak for their delay. The boss whispers to tae-ju, explaining Gurye's political system. Since Gurye is a free city, it is governed by an autonomous committee. He explains that Lee Jung-hak is a master-rank boss who holds massive voting rights, and porters must pay tribute to his guild to survive. The boss tells tae-ju to bow down and thank him, and tae-ju obliges, playing the role of a humble, grateful newbie. Jung-hak asks again if a simple porter really survived a horde of orcs. tae-ju lies smoothly, claiming the fainted mage wiped them all out before the elite orc ambushed him. The guild members carry the fainted survivor away, preparing to head back. Jung-hak turns and walks away, but then he stops. He turns his head, giving tae-ju a chilling, smug smirk. He warns tae-ju not to cause trouble, because if they meet again under bad circumstances, he won't survive. The boss lets out a massive sigh of relief once the master is gone, warning tae-ju to stay far away from him. tae-ju asks if he is really that bad. The boss reveals Jung-hak is corrupt, taking massive bribes from criminals to look the other way. He explains that master-rank fighters are like walking natural disasters, so it is best to avoid them entirely. tae-ju touches his bag, his face going serious. He knows he was in real danger of being exposed. He reflects on how complacent he became. Just because he escaped his rejector fate and beat a couple of weak soldiers, he thought he could coast along in arrogance. He feels deeply embarrassed and sorry toward Tangunak for acting so pathetic in front of a real master. His eyes glow with green toxic energy. He swears to grind harder and become the ultimate menace. Meanwhile, let's take a look at Gurye's local infrastructure. It is a well-established city, but it lacks a few basic things. The biggest issue is a proper hospital. Since Gurye is highly dangerous, actual doctors rarely come here. The few who do are usually sketchy quacks on the run, so the citizens avoid them like the plague. As a result, pharmacies became the main source of medical help in the city. Pharmacists are authorized to prescribe imperial-approved medicines and sell drugs. Business is booming because buying a proven potion is far safer than trusting a shady hospital, which brings us to 3 brown bottles. Tae-ju, wearing a dark blue hoodie, is standing in Gurye, ready to launch his first business venture. He spent an entire month working as a porter, gathering ingredients, and cultivating his poison spirit art to stage 3 just to make this antidote. But the grind was worth it. At least he won't get pushed around by masterclass egoists anymore. And if this deal goes through, his cash problems are completely solved. It is time to get rich. He rings the shop bell. He steps inside Bayek's drugstore. The clerk asks if he needs standard coagulants or mana potions. Tae-ju asks for the owner instead. The clerk looks confused. Tae-ju smiles beneath his hood, telling her he's here to sell. The owner walks out from the back holding a box. He sizes up our guy with a skeptical look. The man is Baek-hong Pyo, CEO of the drugstore and a prominent local figure. Tae-ju reaches into his bag. Baek sighs, immediately assuming he is just another desperate peddler selling low-tier junk. He tells Tae-ju to leave and go to the labor market if he needs cash. Tae-ju ignores the rejection and places a bottle on the counter. An antidote for the mutant 3-striped mosquito. Bayek freezes in his tracks. He turns back, his eyes narrowing in absolute disbelief. Tae-ju holds the bottle, shaking it lightly. A mosquito antidote is supposed to be scientifically impossible in this world. Close-up of Bayek's stunned face. Tae-ju explains that you take it orally, and you can even drink it in advance. The protection lasts up to 10 hours, which is basically a cheat code for mountain hunters. Baek gets furious, calling him a scammer since even top corporations gave up on making an antidote. Tae-ju calmly places 2 more bottles on the counter. He tells Baek to test it out and hands him a card. The card has his contact name, Solitary Senior. High-tier edginess right there. He gives Baek until midnight to test it, or he'll take it to a rival pharmacy. Smooth exit. The shop goes quiet as Tae-ju leaves. Baek and a regular rank hunter stand in silence, wondering if the kid is insane. The hunter picks up the bottle. This is Park Jin-soo, a regular rank raid team leader. He is nicknamed Junkie because he is highly dependent on potions to clear dungeons. Park is curious about the liquid. Baek decides to let him test it since they have nothing to lose. Baek is highly skeptical, but Tae-ju's overwhelming confidence is bothering him. The clerk tells him to leave it alone, but Park's inner junkie is already activated. He chugs the entire bottle in one go, completely ignoring safety protocols. Close-up of his throat swallowing the liquid. Park stands there for a second and frowns. This is just plain water? Baek looks surprised. Park claims there is absolutely zero medicinal effect or energy. He says since he downs potions daily, he would know if it was real. He claims his hopes got up for nothing. He tosses the empty bottle into the trash, telling Bayek to throw the rest away since our guy is clearly a scammer. Bayek looks at the remaining bottles, disappointed but not surprised. Park finishes buying a massive basket of standard potions. He tells the clerk he is heading out for a frog hunt. The total is 3.25 million won. The trash can shows Tae-ju's business cards sitting next to the empty bottle. Park leaves the shop, the bell ringing behind him. Bayek sighs, tossing the other bottles into the trash box. What a waste of hope! Sunset. Suddenly, a massive explosion shakes the forest. A wolf-like beast with giant teeth roars as a shield spell activates. Park's squad is completely ambushed by a blade-toothed marten in a low-level zone. A female teammate swings her sword, trying to hold off the beast. She yells at Park that they need to retreat immediately. She says she was also bitten by a mutant mosquito and is about to go completely paralyzed. Park struggles to hold his shield up, sweating as his energy drains. His eyes go wide in horror. Multiple mutant mosquitoes land directly on his bare neck. He panics, knowing overlapping mosquito bites will instantly drain his remaining mana and paralyze him. He expects his shield to shatter and his entire squad to be wiped out. But wait, his shield is still active. His mana is not scattering. He remembers how the Martins suddenly ambushed them. Their bug-proof suits were shredded instantly, leaving them exposed. He got bitten during the chaos. The Martins blocked their escape. His teammate screams at him to look out as the beast lunges. Close-up of Park's face in absolute realization. The plain water he drank earlier actually worked. He has the ultimate cheat code running in his veins, and he threw the rest of the supply in the garbage. Our red-haired mage screams for her team leader to watch out. Park Jin-soo freezes, looking death straight in the eyes. The giant beast leaps through the air, claws ready to shred him. The claw strike collides with Park's barrier, the force shattering his defensive shield like cheap glass. He gets thrown back as the fragments explode around him, but as he hits the ground, he realizes something completely insane. His shield is gone, but his actual mana pools are still completely full. He stares at his hands, a sudden realization hitting him. The weird liquid he chugged at the drugstore was not plain water. It was a literal miracle cure. He slaps his face, locking in. He grips the hilt of his massive greatsword. With his mana completely intact, he leaps toward the beast with a giant counterstrike. He smirks, realizing that with this legendary buff active, he actually has a chance to win this. Cut to Bayek's pharmacy later that night. The doorbell rings violently as the front doors are practically slammed open. Park Jin-soo stands in the doorway, panting and covered in dirt, while old man Bayek tells him they are closed. Park does not care about store hours. He screams at Bayek to sell him every single bottle of the antidote he has, no matter the price. The next morning, we find our guy tae-ju casually strolling through Gurye Market. The local vendors are shouting their sales pitches, offering mutant beast meat for millions of won. The market is packed with high-end hunter gear, custom armor, and weapons on display. Having only lived in military outposts, tae-ju is completely amazed by the sheer scale of the place. He smiles, glad he decided to take a much-needed rest day. He spent the entire month grinding his poison spirit art to stage 3 to synthesize the antidote. The constant refining process left him physically exhausted, so taking a break to let his dantian recover was the right call. We cut to a local cafe, where old man Bayek is sitting across from him, practically begging to sign the deal. Tae-ju takes a sip of his iced coffee, asking if the results of his little experiment were satisfactory. Bayek is hyperventilating, calling the antidote a literal revolution and apologizing for calling him a scammer. He immediately asks how many bottles Tae-ju has in stock. Tae-ju casually drops the number. He has roughly 60,000 bottles ready to ship, and if those sell out, he can start additional mass production immediately. Bayek slides the contract over. He wants to sell each bottle for 50,000 won while handling all the legal approvals himself. Tae-ju calculates the numbers. An initial batch of 60,000 bottles means a massive 30 billion won. And the best part? After Gurye's incredibly generous 10% tax rate, he is walking away with 27 billion won. Tae-ju signs the paper, offering Bayek an exclusive deal for a year at a discounted rate of 35,000 won per bottle. Bayek is shocked by the discount, but Tae-ju explains he knows about Bayek's orphanage. He knows Bayek uses all his pharmacy profits to feed the city's orphans, so he wanted to help out. In exchange, he just wants Bayek to provide a secure, secret location for his manufacturing. Bayek is literally tearing up, looking at Tae-ju like he is a holy saint. They shake hands, finalizing the contract. With a massive cash advance burning a hole in his pocket, Tae-ju heads back to the market to buy some proper equipment. He wanders through the rows of weapon stalls, looking for something that fits his style. Suddenly, a massive, muscular arm grabs his shoulder out of nowhere. Tae-ju blinks, completely caught off guard. A giant bald man pulls him close, boasting that his forge is the best in the entire city. He strikes a muscular pose, offering Tae-ju a handsome guy discount if he buys right now. Tae-ju sweats, politely declining and trying to back away from the sheer intensity of this man, but the bald giant just smiles and grabs him by the collar. Tae-ju lets out a tiny squeak as he is physically lifted off his feet. He gets dragged toward the forge, realizing that despite having no rank tattoos, this compatible blacksmith has insane physical strength. They enter the shop, which is lined with high-end shields, massive warhammers, and beautifully crafted swords. Tae-ju is genuinely impressed, asking if the smith crafted all of these masterpieces himself. He channels a bit of his green chi to inspect the quality, realizing this guy's boast was actually legit. He pulls out a blueprint, asking if the smith can craft 100 custom daggers. The smith looks at the design, surprised by the tiny leaf-like shape of the blades. He rubs his chin, suggesting they use premium mana-infused steel so the blades do not shatter when thrown with force. Tae-ju smiles, asking if it is possible. The smith says yes, but complains that high-grade mana steel is rare and will take some time to source. He winks, giving him a discount and pricing the order at a whopping 250 million won. Tae-ju does not even blink. He pulls out his card and pays the entire amount on the spot, leaving the smith completely stunned. He leaves MX Forge, glad he secured his hidden weapons so easily. Next up, he needs some proper defensive armor. He recalls how Tanggunak carried hundreds of weapons and toxic vials hidden inside flowing traditional robes, but when he imagines wearing traditional Murim robes in Gurye, he pictures the locals pointing and laughing at him. He decides to stick with modern fashion to avoid looking like a lost cosplayer. He wonders what kind of modern armor could double as a concealment coat. A voice calls out to him from the side. A cute promoter with fox ears hands him a pamphlet for Flame Boutique, advertising their new Magic Beast leather armor. Tae-ju looks at the flyer, realizing a modern trench coat made of magic beast leather is the perfect solution. We cut to a beautiful scenic view of Gurye. A sleek red double-decker cable car glides high above the city streets. On the open top deck, passengers are looking toward the high walls of the castle. A young woman with long gray hair looks at the city wall, calling it a ridiculous display of over-the-top vanity. Her bespectacled secretary explains that only Gurye's ultra-wealthy elites and high-ranking council members are allowed to live inside. The gray-haired girl is Jeong Yeon-hee, the independent heir of the massive Bakdu group and a top cadet at the Army Academy. Her secretary asks if she really traveled all Gurye just to buy a fox fur coat. Yeon-hee explains it is not just any fur, it is rare Siberian phantom fox fur, which provides perfect thermal regulation and elite defense stats. The secretary's eyes sparkle, realizing why her lady took a vacation for this. She pulls out a black card, telling Yeon-hee that her grandfather told her to spend freely. Yeon-hee declines, proud of her financial independence as the cable car announces Gurye Market. She steps off the car onto the platform. She tells her secretary they are heading straight to the boutique to see the coat. Meanwhile, Tae-ju is looking at the Flame Boutique flyer outside the shop. He enters, convinced that a magic beast leather coat is exactly what he needs to hide his weapons. The doorbell rings as he steps inside, calling out a polite greeting. Yeon-hee and her secretary are already inside, looking annoyed by the arrival of an uninvited guest. The boutique owner steps out to welcome him. And yes, it is our red-haired fire mage. She instantly recognizes him, calling him Kim Tae-ju. Tae-ju tries to play dumb, but she points out that she remembers the porter who saved her during the orc ambush. Tae-ju's eyes narrow as he realizes his cover is completely blown. She explains that dungeon raids are just a side gig and that designing custom magic armor is her main job. Tae-ju waves his hand, trying to make a quick exit to avoid drawing any attention. But she grabs his arm, pleading with him to wait. She looks him in the eyes, her expression completely serious. She explains that when the Nogodan Guild asked her who killed the orcs, she realized he wanted to keep a low profile, so she took the credit for him. Tae-ju tries to deny it, but his sweat drops prove he is totally lying. She tearfully explains that thanks to his intervention, she was able to recover the bodies of her team leader and her lover. Tae-ju stands in silence as she cries. He feels incredibly awkward. He knows he only saved her to test his own new combat skills and collect rare ingredients, not out of any noble heroism. But as he looks at her tears, he realizes this is the first time in his entire life someone has looked at him with genuine gratitude. The secretary rudely interrupts, asking how long they are going to keep her lady waiting. The red-haired mage gasps, quickly turning around to apologize. She drops to her knees in front of Jeong Yeon-hee. She bows low, apologizing but stating she cannot sell her the Siberian fox fur coat. Tae-ju is completely stunned by her sudden announcement. The secretary goes ballistic, screaming that they already took measurements and have the payment ready. The mage explains that the coat is her masterpiece, but she has just realized it is needed elsewhere. She looks up, offering to personally compensate them for the trouble. The secretary raises her hand, but Yeon-hee puts her hand over her secretary's face, telling her to stop. Yeon-hee turns around, her face cold and calm as she tells her secretary they are leaving. The secretary throws a massive tantrum, hopping up and down, but Yeon-hee just walks away. The doorbell rings as they exit. Tae-ju sweats, pointing out that she just offended Gurye's wealthiest client. The mage waves it off, smiling as she apologizes for putting him in an awkward spot. She chuckles, asking him if anyone has ever told him he is a bit slow on the uptake. Tae-ju stands there, looking completely blank. She smiles, telling him she is going to give the Siberian fox fur coat to him. Tae-ju blinks, unable to process the offer. She walks over to the mannequin, presenting the beautiful tan-colored leather trench coat. Tae-ju declines, telling her his intentions back then were not noble and that he cannot accept such a valuable gift. She steps close, telling him his intentions do not matter. What matters is that she survived. She looks him in the eyes, telling him that if it really weighs on his mind, he should just use his strength to save even more people in the future. Tae-ju closes his eyes. He is completely overwhelmed. His entire life was filled with constant criticism and physical pain as a rejector. But as a small smile spreads across his face, he realizes that being appreciated actually feels pretty good. He looks at her, agreeing to accept the gift. She squeals with joy, dragging him over to take his measurements. We cut to the immortal realm. A handsome sword immortal named Dongbin is floating on his back, sighing with absolute boredom. He complains that the afterlife is incredibly dull, with nothing to do. He grumbles that every ascended master looks exactly the same, just a bunch of old men with white beards. But then his eyes land on a familiar figure sitting on a cliff. He notes that Tang Gunak is the only master who stands out in the entire realm. He explains that Tangunak has been styling his hair, trimming his beard, and wearing awesome modern trench robes based on Tae-ju's memories. Dongbin decides he wants a cool coat too, figuring that if he changes his clothes, things might feel a little less dull. He nods, preparing his flying sword to pay Tangunak a visit. He reaches into his flowing sleeve, pulling out a bribe. He holds a glowing golden pink fruit, a legendary heavenly Dao peach from the immortal realm. We start today's grind outside Baek's orphanage in Gurye City. Deep in the basement B2F, the lights are low, but the grind never stops. This is our guy's secret laboratory, the birthplace of the world's most illegal cash flow machine. Tae-ju is currently standing over a giant vat of glowing green liquid. He has been mixing, filtering, and refining his highly toxic antidote formula for 7 straight days. He pops in his earbud to make a quick call. The dial tone rings as he leans against the metal lockers. He gets Old Man back on the line, casually letting him know the raw batch is fully packed and ready for delivery. Over at the drugstore, Baek is practically hyperventilating. He tells Tae-ju they are completely cleaned out of stock. Turns out, Gurye's local hunters are literally starting fistfights in the lobby trying to buy every bottle. Everyone is panic buying, and the regular rank squads are hoarding the antidote like it's a limited edition drop. Tae-ju just smirks. He tells Baek to announce a steady supply and limit purchases to 2 bottles per person. Classic supply control tactics. The legendary Baek DX shop label is officially Gurye's most wanted item. Baek is still nervous, asking if they should worry about rival pharmaceutical corporations making a copycat drug. Tae-ju laughs it off. He knows that unless a modern chemist miraculously learns ancient Murim soul cultivation, replicating his formula is mathematically impossible. But as he packs the boxes, he asks when the automated packaging machines are arriving. He's been manually capping 20,000 bottles a day. His back is broken, his clothes are ruined, and he hasn't showered in a week. Meanwhile, outside the heavy steel basement doors, 2 orphans are sneaking around, whispering about ghost stories. The little girl is terrified, warning her brother that the basement is haunted by a smelly, unwashed spirit. The boy tries to act tough, turning the massive vault wheel to prove there is no ghost. The heavy steel door screeches open, revealing a dark, mist-filled room. Tae-ju steps into the light, looking like a literal zombie with glowing purple eyes. He gives them a deadpan grin. "Hello." The kids lose their minds, screaming at the top of their lungs. They run away crying about the smelly basement ghost. Tae-ju stands there, completely offended by the ghost comment. He takes a quick sniff of his sleeve. Okay, maybe he really does need a shower. He checks the clock, remembering his porter guide, Mr. O, begged him to cover a shift because another porter fled Gurye. But before he can head upstairs, he hears heels clicking down the hallway. Someone is walking toward his lab with steady, confident steps. It is Baek Seo Yeon, carrying a large cardboard box while the terrified orphans hide behind her skirt. Tae-ju introduces himself, still looking like an unwashed caveman. She introduces herself as Baek's daughter, smiling politely despite the chemical smell radiating from him. She explains she came down to check on the kid's ghost rumors and deliver a package that arrived for him. It's the custom order from MX Forge. The prototype weapons are finally here. Tae-ju's face lights up. He takes the box, thanking her for the delivery. She giggles, holding her nose and suggesting he should definitely use the first floor shower before leaving. Tae-ju awkwardly waves goodbye as she leads the kids back upstairs. Before washing up, he decides to inspect his brand new daggers. He cuts the tape, revealing a row of beautifully crafted metallic leaf-shaped blades. There is a small envelope resting on top. He opens the note. It is a drawing of the giant bald blacksmith blowing him a kiss, telling him to use the daggers gently. Tae-ju shivers with pure disgust. He rips the note to shreds in a silent, muscle-twitching rage. He picks up one of the daggers to inspect the blade. It's solid, perfectly balanced, and the mana steel edge is razor-sharp. He gives it a test spin. The weight and grip are absolutely flawless. He smiles, realizing these custom daggers are going to make his throwing arts 10 times more lethal. It makes him even more excited for his custom Siberian fox fur coat. But for now, he has to keep up his porter disguise. He loads the delivery boxes onto a cart and heads toward the shower. Cut to the Mount Jiri demonic beast border zone. Mr. O's raid team is resting by the rocks. Mr. O spots Tae-ju walking up the trail. He waves happily, calling out to his favorite young porter. Mr. O apologizes for making him travel all this way on such short notice. Tae-ju tells him it's no problem, glad to help out. But before he can set down his pack, a hand grips the hilt of a sword. A toxic-looking swordsman named Jongwon Jun glares at him, demanding to know why a lowly porter made them wait. tae-ju steps up, calmly pointing out that he arrived exactly on the agreed-upon time. Wonjun draws his katana, screaming that an unawakened civilian has no right to talk back to an awakened warrior. Tae-ju's eyes flare with green toxic energy. He is actively calculating the cleanest way to slice this guy's throat. Mr. O panics, whispering in tae-ju's ear to just endure the insults because the contract cancellation penalty is massive. Tae-ju closes his eyes, suppressing his killing intent. He plays along, bowing his head and offering a fake apology. Wonjun scoffs, putting his sword away and muttering that the porter is lucky he didn't lose a limb. The group prepares to head out. Tae-ju scans the party. There are only 7 people. He calculates the scale of the zone. For a hunt of this level, they should have at least 15 hunters. He raises his hand, asking the group if they are seriously going in understaffed. Wonjun turns back instantly, his veins popping as he asks if the porter has a literal death wish. He clenches his fist, his face turning red with rage. Tae-ju looks at him with deadpan, absolute silence. He is officially done with this guy. Wonjun draws his blade, preparing to strike. The raid leader, Kwon Dong-sok, steps in with a smug grin. He doesn't care about the fight, he just doesn't want the luggage getting dirty. He warns Tae-ju to shut up or be left as monster feed. Wonjun sneers, mocking Gurye's porters for getting too comfortable lately. The team laughs, completely dismissive of Mr. O's shaking apologies. Tae-ju's hand twitches. He has stage 3 poison ki running through his veins and he's currently being threatened by low-tier beginners. The urge to clear the lobby is getting hard to ignore. The leader tells everyone to drink their mosquito antidote so they can move out. Mr. O hands Tae-ju a separate bottle, apologizing for dragging him into such a toxic party. Tae-ju looks at the liquid. The hunt is near the Blade Martin zone where the dangerous beasts reside. Because of his newly invented antidote, these low-tier groups are no longer wearing heavy bug-proof armor, allowing them to shrink their raid size to maximize profits. He takes a drink, realizing his business venture is actively changing Gurye's hunting ecosystem. He recalls the red-haired mage telling him to use his strength to save lives. He is technically saving lives by mass-producing the medicine, but it's also making underleveled amateurs way too confident. He glares at the laughing hunters ahead. He realizes his mind is warping. The ancient poisonous heart of Tanganak is slowly taking over his personality. He is starting to view annoying people not as nuisances, but as targets that need to be permanently deleted. The legacy of the absolute poison demon is a cold, calculation-based urge to kill. But Tae-ju is completely fine with the change. In a world where your own family tries to execute you, a soft heart is a literal death sentence. He grabs Mr. O's shoulder, telling him to stay within arm's reach of him at all times during the hunt. Mr. O thinks he's joking, laughing nervously. Tae-ju's face is completely serious. Deep in the brush, a massive beast with glowing red eyes is watching them. It lets out a low, predatory growl. Tae-ju senses the raw, red-hot killing intent radiating from the shadows. We start with a flashback to ancient Murim, where the Zuj clan's massive fortress is burning to the ground. A figure floats down from the sky, landing lightly on the blood-stained plaza. An elder of the clan is being held by the throat, choking as he gasps for air. The man is Zuge Cheon, patriarch of the Zuge clan. He screams at Tangunak, asking if he has lost his mind. Gunak looks down on him with absolute, icy contempt, calling him a shameless demonic cult collaborator. Dozens of glowing purple swords levitate around Gunak, ready to shred the entire plaza. Zuj Cheon tries to lie, claiming the Zuj clan is one of the pillars of the Orthodox faction. Gunak just sighs, tired of hearing the same pathetic excuses from cult members. He flickers his wrist, and several severed heads roll across the stone floor. He drops Zhu Qian's own son's head at his feet, telling him to say hello. He reveals the Zhuj clan was slaughtering innocent villagers to refine forbidden demonic blood pills. Gunnock's face is completely devoid of emotion as he glares at the patriarch. He states that of all the scum in the world, he hates hypocrites who hide behind the weak the absolute most. Zhuge Qian falls to his knees, crying and begging for his life, offering to sell out his cult leaders. Tangunak doesn't do deals with trash. He raises his hand, the purple blades glowing with intense spiritual pressure. He delivers a single deadpan command. Be gone! The flying daggers launch, a massive shockwave of purple energy obliterating the patriarch and the temple behind him. Gunak stands amid the ruins, promising to send the rest of the cult to hell very soon. We snap back to reality on Meet Jiri. The group has easily cleared a small pack of martins. Wonjun is picking up energy crystals, laughing and mocking the cowardly porter who was worried about the raid size. Mr. O holds tae-ju back as tae-ju watches them with cold eyes, noting they only survived because of his antidote. His hand twitches toward his daggers. He is actively deciding if he should just end their lives right here. But he restrains himself, deciding these low-tier beginners aren't even worthy of being the first test subjects for his custom weapons. Wonjun spots him looking and yells another cheap insult. Taeju's eyes narrow as he looks toward the dense thicket behind them. The bushes are rustling heavily. Mr. O is confused, but Tae-ju warns him to prepare himself because the real show is about to start. A massive clawed paw stomps out of the brush, crushing the grass. Out steps a massive, crimson-furred dire wolf with razor-sharp teeth. Mr. O begins to shake, recognizing the legendary red-furred wolf of Mount Jiri. The rest of the team spots the beast, their smug laughter evaporating instantly. Tae-ju calmly tells Mr. O to relax and steps forward, slipping a leaf dagger into his hand. The red-furred wolf requires at least a regular rank party to defeat, but the actual issue is not the beast's power level. The issue is that red-furred wolves always hunt in male-female pairs. Right on cue, the second wolf leaps from the shadows, catching the group from behind. Wonjun tries a desperate slash, but the beast easily dodges his clumsy strike. The massive wolf lands gracefully, baring its fangs. Wonjun panics, realizing his beginner-tier skills are completely useless. To make matters worse, the orange-haired raid leader Kwon Dong-sok immediately turns his back and flees, abandoning his team. The remaining hunters are screaming in terror as the two massive wolves flank them. Wonjun decides to use Gurye's oldest strategy, use the porters as live bait to buy themselves escape time. The giant wolf lunges directly at Mr. O and Tae-ju, its jaws wide open. Tae-ju calmly pulls a custom mana steel dagger from his sleeve. He executes dagger art, one flash, throwing the blade with the speed of a railgun. The dagger flies in a straight beam of green toxic energy, piercing cleanly through the wolf's forehead. The impact splits the air as the beast's skull is pinned directly to the rocky cliff face behind it, killing it instantly. Mr. O stands in absolute jaw-dropping silence. Tae-ju's green energy swirls around him as he stands over the twitching carcass. He glares at the surviving hunters. He states that of all the trash in Gurye, he hates cowards who sacrifice the weak to save their own skins the absolute most. Wonjun falls to his knees, holding his ear. The shockwave of Tae-ju's dagger throw was so fast it cleanly sliced his left ear off. He looks up at the nameless porter, his face twisted in pure, unadulterated terror. The first giant wolf lies dead, black blood pooling on the dirt. The second wolf steps back, whimpering as it looks at the absolute monster standing in front of it. Its red eyes are wide with fear. Tae-ju steps forward, his boots crackling with green toxic electricity. "Shut up!" He tells the remaining wolf that if it takes a single step, it dies. The beast freezes, completely stat-checked by a human's killing intent. He turns to Wonjun, asking if they have always sacrificed innocent porters to save themselves. Wonjun, blood dripping from his face, screams that it's only natural for weaklings to die for the awakened, still talking trash even when he's completely cooked. Taeju's face goes completely cold. He smiles, telling them that if that's their logic, they should experience it themselves. With a sudden flicker, he leaps onto a high rock cliff, looking down on them like a king. He gives a simple, icy command to the wolf below. "Fight!" The wolf instantly turns on the terrified party. Tae-ju sits on his rocky throne, telling them he already handled his share of the work, so they can handle the rest. Wonjun's orange-haired leader, who is trying to crawl away, screams that Tae-ju will pay for threatening the awakened. His girl companion begs Tae-ju to save them, offering to pay whatever he wants. The leader just tells her to shut up. Tae-ju looks down on them, his hand moving to a second dagger. He flicks his wrist, and the dagger slices off Wonjun's remaining ear. He calmly states that since they don't understand human words, they don't need ears anyway. He looks down at the screaming, bleeding hunters, his green eyes glowing in the dark forest. He asks them where all that smug confidence they had during the marten hunt went. He gives them one final, absolute command: you fight. Talk about main character energy. Let's see how long they survive in this lobby. Last time, our guy Tae-ju officially ran out of patience with his toxic raid group. Instead of carrying these absolute clowns, he casually hopped up onto a rock, looked down at them and told them to fight on their own. And right on cue, the giant red-furred wolf stands between the party and the exit. Wonjun, who is currently missing an entire left ear thanks to Taeju's warning shot, can barely process what is happening. He is holding his bleeding head, gritting his teeth, and trying to act tough, but the sheer panic is starting to set in. Tae-ju just sits up on his rocky perch, watching the absolute disaster unfold with a smug grin. He points out that they seem to have other things to worry about than arguing with their porter. With no other choice, Wanjun draws his blade and yells at his squad to scatter, but the wolf is an expert class threat. It moves faster than a basic swordsman can blink, launching a heavy paw strike that catches Wanjun clean in the face. The impact sends him flying through the air like a discarded ragdoll. He does not even get a chance to scream before he hit the dirt. Meanwhile, the party leader, Kwon Dong-sok, is currently screaming about his missing ears. He is clutching his neck, covered in blood, and promising to murder the damn porter the very second he gets out of this alive. Unfortunately for him, his exit strategy has just been cancelled. The wolf's massive jaws clamp down right behind him. The remaining party members are in absolute chaos. One of the hunter girls screams as the wolf shifts its focus to the rest of the squad. Dong-sok is completely out of the fight, leaving them entirely leaderless. She tries to run, but you do not run from an apex predator in its own territory. The giant red beast looms over her like a shadow of pure death. She looks back, her eyes wide with terror as she realizes exactly how helpless she is without her front line. The wolf closes its jaws. And just like that, the toxic squad is completely wiped out. The forest goes dead quiet, save for the low growl of the beast as it licks the blood off its muzzle. The beast shifts its glowing red eyes upward. It smells fresh prey. It locks onto the final survivor sitting on the cliff edge. It thinks this is just another easy snack. Down below, the porter boss, Mr. O, is absolutely losing his mind. He yells at tae-ju to run because the monster is coming straight for him next. But tae-ju does not move an inch. He just sighs, looking down at the giant beast, and notes that if the wolf had just walked away, he would have let it live. His eyes flare with that signature, glowing green chi. He tells the beast that killing a few low-tier hunters must have given it way too much confidence, especially after he already demonstrated the massive power gap between them. He steps off the cliff. And as he falls, he channels his toxic internal energy directly into his palms. No gold coins this time. He is going for a full physical test run. The green energy swirls around his arms, crackling like high-voltage lightning as he closes the distance. He unleashes the blood venom twin palm. The collision of his toxic energy with the ground creates a massive, swirling hurricane of green force. The entire forest floor shatters as a giant pillar of green light erupts into the sky, completely vaporizing the wolf in a single second. Mr. O is standing there with his mouth wide open. He is trying to calculate what he just saw. He notes that tae-ju has no guild crest, no face tattoo, and registers as a basic civilian. So how is he pulling off damage numbers that look like an active military raid? And then, the final puzzle piece clicks into place in Mr. O's head. He remembers the dead orcs from their very first run. The guild said the red-haired mage did it, but now he realizes tae-ju lied to hide his true strength from the very beginning. Tae-ju casually walks out of the clearing, dust brushing off his shoulders. He stretches his arms, muttering that it is nice to finally get some exercise after spending so much time locked in a basement mixing chemicals. Mr. O does not even wait for him to get close. He drops straight to his knees, presses his forehead into the dirt, and begs tae-ju to spare his life. Tae-ju stops, scratches his head, and asks why on earth he would ever want to kill him. Mr. O slowly looks up, his face covered in sweat, wondering if our guy is actually being serious. Tae-ju tells him to get up and asks if he is injured anywhere. Mr. O scrambles to his feet, insisting that he is perfectly fine, even if he was on the verge of a heart attack. Tae-ju holds up a finger and says he has one small favor to ask. Mr. O immediately salutes, telling him to just say the word. Tae-ju leans in, his face going dark as he asks about what happened here today. Mr. O is old, but he is not stupid. He immediately shakes his head trembling and says he did not see a single thing. He has officially mastered the art of survival. Tae-ju smiles, thanking him, and suggests they head back down the mountain. Behind them, the bodies of the dead hunters are left in the dirt. Tae-ju looks back one last time. He knows the local monsters will clean up the evidence by nightfall. He did not kill those hunters directly, but he let them face the consequences of their own actions, and he feels absolutely zero guilt. Whether acting as the legendary poison demon from his past life, or as Kim Tae-ju in this one, he has a simple rule. Anyone who treats the weak as meat shields to save their own skin is absolute trash that does not deserve to draw breath. Meanwhile, back in Gurye City, we cut to the massive, high-tech headquarters of YJ Tower. Inside a luxury conference room, a heavy fist slams onto the table. The local Gurye Free daily newspaper is spread out, with headlines screaming about the mosquito antidote revolution and naming Kim Tae-ju as Gurye's newest billionaire. A heavy-set man is yelling that their sales have been cut in half ever since that tiny drugstore started selling the antidote, because customers are buying all their other medicine there too. The man sitting across from him is Oh Nambok, owner of New Horizon Drug Shop. He calmly points out that out of Gurye's 200 pharmacies, their cartel controls 70% of the market, with Chanwang Bio holding the rest. The only shop they cannot touch is Baek's pharmacy. The loud guy is Lee Gilho, owner of Gurye Nuri Drug Shop. He snarls that the Gurye Autonomous Committee is protecting Baek's pharmacy just because the old man feeds a bunch of orphan kids, which apparently passes for public service these days. Nambok sighs, calling him clueless and asking why he is just shouting instead of offering an actual business solution. Before a physical fight breaks out, the man at the head of the table claps his hands with a warm, elegant smile. This is Jo Hoon-sok, the CEO of YJ Pharmacy, Gurye's dominant medical conglomerate. Hoon-sok tells them to calm down, reminding them they are all in the same boat. He then casually reveals that YJ's top research department has completely failed to reverse engineer the antidote. The other two cartel bosses look incredibly nervous as they admit their own labs failed to create a copycat drug as well. It turns out you cannot replicate a formula that literally requires ancient Murim chi manipulation to brew. Nambok tries to save face, claiming it is only a matter of time before their scientists figure it out. Gilho slams his fist down again, yelling that they will go bankrupt before that happens. They need a solution right now. Hoon-sok adjusts his collar, his elegant smile turning incredibly sharp. He notes that while the Gurye Autonomous Committee is annoying, they can always resort to their classic corporate strategy. Gilho grins, realizing Hoon-sok has already run a full background check on their target. Hoon-sok presses a button on his desk, bringing up a secure file on the screen. The file displays a familiar face, Kim Tae-ju, 29 years old, former military officer from Seorak and the eldest son of General Kim Ung-bang. Nambok gasps, pointing out that if the kid's father is a master-class general, targeting him might bring the entire military down on their heads. Hoon-sok laughs, waving his hand, and tells him that is just surface-level information. The real story is far more interesting. He explains that tae-ju is a verified mana rejector who was kicked out of his home years ago. His biological mother is dead, and the general's new wife is Mitsui Honda, a powerful noblewoman from Japan. Gilho starts laughing, realizing it is a classic family drama. Tae-ju's stepmother and half-siblings want him dead, meaning he has absolutely no backup from his family. Hoon-sok folds his hands, his eyes narrowing. He plans to meet Tae-ju first and offer him a massive sum of money to buy out the distribution rights. And if Tae-ju refuses, Hoon-sok smiles, stating they will just go about their business the way they always do. He notes that it has been a while since he personally spilled some blood, and he is almost looking forward to it. Meanwhile, we cut to the massive fortress-like base of the Jirisan Monster Defense Corps under the Imperial Army. Inside the high-ranking office, a knock sounds at the door. An officer steps in, delivers a perfect military salute, and announces they have successfully obtained the target's files from the Gurye Autonomous Committee. He slides a secure black folder across the desk. The man reviewing the folder is Oh Jin-hyung, a master-class lieutenant general. He reads the name, Kim Tae-ju, 29 years old, eldest son of General Kim. He muses that the rumors about the general's eldest son being a sickly rejector were apparently true. He notes that when the military previously requested supplies from Gurye, they were turned down due to local political interference. But since the developer is a former soldier and the general's son, this might actually play right into his hands. He slams the folder shut. He knows that if they can secure this antidote, they can launch a massive preemptive purge inside Jirisan before the next monster wave hits, securing his own promotion. He grins like a predator, noting that father and son share blood, so securing the supply should be guaranteed. He orders his officer to contact Paju territory immediately. He wants to speak with Brigadier General Kim Ung-bang. Inside a luxurious estate decorated with massive historical paintings, an officer salutes and leaves the room. A hand slowly sets down an old-school secure military telephone. General Kim Ung-bang sits at his desk, his face grim. He mutters that even a worm will turn, clearly stunned by the news he just received from Gurye. Standing across from his desk is his wife, Mitsui Honda, looking as elegant and toxic as ever. She asks when their sickly tae-ju learned to do any of this, considering he was so weak they couldn't even send him to a normal school. She immediately opens her phone, suggesting they travel to Gurye City right away. She claims tae-ju lacks social experience, and now that he has all this money, some street scammer might take advantage of him. General Kim does not even look at her. He coldly tells her to leave the boy alone. Mitsui stops, her eyes narrowing as she asks what he just said. General Kim reminds her that they already removed tae-ju from the family registry, meaning he is no longer their son. Mitsui fake smiles, asking how he can sever the bonds of blood so easily. She insists they have a moral obligation to help him manage his assets. General Kim slams his hand down, telling her to shut her mouth. He tells her that if she has even a shred of conscience left, she will stop this. Mitsui is momentarily startled, wondering if her husband somehow found out about the assassination request she sent with Jang In-dong. But then she clenches her fist, reminding herself that Jang In-dong is dead, meaning there is absolutely no evidence linking her to the crime. She changes her tactics, yelling that if he won't do it for the family, he should do it for his career. She points out that the military high command promised him a major promotion review if he convinces tae-ju to supply the antidote. She leans over his desk, snapping that her family in Kyushu is struggling to support Paju's debts. She demands to know how they are going to pay the massive tuition fees for their other two sons, Taepyeong and Taexion, and asks if tae-ju is the only child he cares about. General Kim folds his hands, looking completely exhausted. He tells her that if she wants the antidote so badly, she should go to Gurye and ask tae-ju herself. He looks up with a cold glare, making it absolutely clear that he will not play any part in her schemes. Mitsui grits her teeth, her elegant facade completely cracking for a split second. She turns on her heel, spitting that she will handle things her own way. She slams the massive office door shut, leaving the general alone in his study. The room goes silent. General Kim leans back in his leather chair, staring up at the ceiling. He notes that he had not heard from tae-ju in months, and genuinely assumed the boy was dead. A faint, genuine smile touches his lips as he mutters that he is glad his son is finally living a meaningful life. It turns out the general is not completely heartless, even if he is too weak to stand up to his wife. Meanwhile, we cut back to the sunny streets of Gurye Market. Tae-ju is currently standing outside Flame Boutique, the high-end custom armor shop. Inside, rows of premium, Magic Beast leather suits are lined up on hangers. Tae-ju is standing in front of a full-length mirror, trying on his brand-new custom coat. The red-haired boutique owner is standing behind him, humming happily as she adjusts the shoulders. She smiles, telling him that it looks absolutely perfect on him. Tae-ju looks at his reflection, running his hand over the fabric. He notes that a coat made from high-tier monster byproducts is definitely on a different level compared to standard gear. The coat is incredibly light, provides near-impenetrable physical defense, and even has built-in climate control. Best of all, she dyed it gray just as he asked, so he can blend into Gurye's crowded streets without drawing unwanted attention. He pulls open the inner lining, revealing a series of custom loops. He is highly pleased with the ample storage space designed specifically to hold his 100 custom willow leaf flying daggers. The designer notes that while she was making the alterations, she realized he carries an insane amount of concealed weapons and asks if he is an awakened specializing in stealth combat. Tae-ju just smiles, telling her it is something like that. Tae-ju reaches into his pocket, stating that he cannot take a masterpiece like this for free, and asks for the bill. In the corner, we see the raw material cost, a staggering 4.3 billion won. But she immediately waves her hands, insisting she won't take a single cent because he saved her life. Tae-ju points out that she gave him a rare Siberian fox coat that someone else had already reserved, which must have put her shop in a highly difficult spot with Gurye's elite. She laughs, telling him that Lady Jong Yeonhee of the Baekdu group was perfectly fine, as she managed to track down an alternative rare item and sent it to her instead. Tae-ju crosses his arms, thinking for a moment. He hates being in debt to anyone, especially when it comes to business. He looks around the shop, points a finger at the massive racks of luxury clothing, and tells her he will take everything from here to there. He pulls out his black card with a grin, explaining he will give the clothes to the kids at Bayek's orphanage as gifts, which should easily boost her shop's sales numbers for the quarter. He asks her to ring it up immediately. She realizes he won't take no for an answer, smiles warmly, and heads to the back to pack up the massive order. As she walks away, she looks back at Tae-ju, thinking that he is a completely different kind of awakened compared to the arrogant trash she usually deals with in Gurye. To her, he is a genuinely kind and honorable person. Suddenly, the shop's doorbell rings. Tae-ju turns his head as a man steps into the boutique. The man walks with slow, confident steps, his expensive leather shoes clicking on the wooden floor. It is Jo Hoon-sok, CEO of YJ Pharmacy. He smiles elegantly, sliding a clean business card between his fingers and introducing himself as the representative of Gurye's dominant pharmacy association. Tae-ju looks at the card, his face going completely flat. Hoon-sok chuckles, noting that his sudden visit seems to have made Tae-ju a bit uncomfortable, and comments on the lack of a handshake. Tae-ju pockets his hands, asking what business the CEO of Gurye's medical cartel has with a simple porter, and wonders how he managed to track his location down so fast. Hoon-sok smiles, stating there is absolutely nothing his pharmacy association does not know inside Gurye City. He decides to cut straight to the chase. His eyes go cold as he tells tae-ju he has a small favor to ask. He asks tae-ju to bypass his exclusive contract with Bayek and supply YJ Pharmacy with the mosquito antidote instead. Tae-ju deadpans, asking if this is supposed to be a favor or a threat. Hoon-sok spreads his arms, claiming that for now, it is just a friendly business favor. Tae-ju does not even hesitate. He delivers a flat, immediate no. Hoon-sok's smile twitches. He quickly adds that YJ will cover any breach of contract penalty fees and pay tae-ju 3 times the supply price offered by Bayek's bookstore. Tae-ju walks past him, stating he has no interest in becoming a man without honor. Hoon-sok turns around, offering a final bid of 5 billion won just for the antidote's formula. Tae-ju stops, looks over his shoulder, and asks if Hoon-sok would sell a literal gold mine for such pathetic pocket change. Hoon-sok's elegant composure completely vanishes, his jaw clenching in a silent rage. He warns tae-ju that if he continues to behave this way, he will find it extremely difficult to survive in Gurye City. Tae-ju just tells him not to worry about his survival, bids him goodbye, and walks away. The red-haired boutique owner returns, asking if he had a visitor. Tae-ju casually tells her it was just a regular street peddler, so he politely sent him away. Meanwhile, outside, Hoon-sok is clutching his phone, his face twisted in anger as he calls Tae-ju a stubborn brat. He barks into his phone, ordering his men to start their usual cleanup work immediately. The corporate war has officially begun. We cut to the outskirts of Gurye City, at the massive construction site of Tae-ju's new luxury villa and laboratory. The sun is setting over the mountains as the heavy machinery operates in the background. Tae-ju arrives at the site, carrying a mountain of designer shopping bags from Flame Boutique, and greets Bak Hong-pyo with a cheerful wave. Old man Bayek looks up from his blueprints, surprised to see his business partner. He asks what on earth Tae-ju is holding in his hands. Tae-ju explains that since Bayek has been helping him so much with the business and the construction, he wanted to give something back, so he bought some premium designer clothes for all the orphanage kids. Old man Bayek is so deeply moved that tears literally start streaming down his face. He grabs the bags, crying that Tae-ju is a literal saint, and promises to work even harder to make their business a massive success. Tae-ju scratches his head with a warm smile, glad that the old man likes the gift. He looks up at the massive building frame, thanking Bayek for handling everything from buying the land to managing the construction. And then, he casually mentions that he has decided to accept the proposal Bayek brought up earlier. Bayek stops, looking at him with wide eyes, asking if he has finally made up his mind. Tae-ju nods, explaining that the representative of YJ Pharmacy came to see him today, and meeting that corporate snake gave him the final push he needed. Bayek goes pale, asking if Hoon-sok tried to threaten or harm him in any way. Tae-ju stretches his arms behind his head, admitting it was just a standard corporate threat. But thanks to that meeting, he realized once again how people treat you in this lawless world when they think you lack the power to bite back. He looks out over the Gurye skyline, declaring that they are going to establish their own massive, independent pharmaceutical corporation to crush the local cartel. He asks Bayek to continue managing the logistics for him. Bayek grins, telling him it would be his absolute honor. Tae-ju tells him to ensure the construction is finished perfectly, as he will be away from Gurye for a while. Bayek is surprised, asking if he is traveling somewhere far. Tae-ju smiles, looking out at the sunset. He tells him that before they officially launch the company, he is heading into Gurye's deepest monster territory to collect some incredibly lethal materials. Manga built this technique by combining Qigong with the most refined martial arts concepts in history. There are 10 stages in total, and Tae-ju is currently chilling right at stage 3. At stage 10, you basically become a walking natural disaster capable of melting entire demonic armies with a single hand gesture. But to get there, our guy has to grind in the deepest, most dangerous zones of Mount Jiri, charges straight ahead, leaps high, breathes in deep, stabs the core, slices clean, lands without a sound. He takes a breath, looking at this massive creature that is supposed to be a cat but is literally the size of a tiger. The skin was so tough his normal weapons and internal energy barely left a scratch. His current cultivation is still at stage 3, which is basically considered a shameful level for someone with his memories. But since he has the mental blueprint of a literal god, harvesting this massive poison gland is basically just a review session. As long as he keeps consuming new toxins, his cultivation speed is going to completely break the balance of this world. His physical body has finally stabilized, meaning the bottleneck for stage 4 is officially gone. Now he just needs to find a specific type of deer to unlock his next massive stat upgrade. Though first, he has to manually dig his custom-forged daggers out of the corpse because those things are way too expensive to leave behind. He spots the target grazing peacefully near a boulder. This is the spore-poison water deer, a monster that looks like a regular deer with fangs and camel humps on its back. Flickers forward fast, strikes the beast, triggers the explosion, and the air turns purple with microscopic death. This poison is legendary in the area because it supposedly melts through regular military gas masks in under a minute. Naturally, our guy's first instinct is to touch it because he refuses to let premium poison go to waste. He channels his core cultivation technique as the purple mist starts wrapping around his body. Most humans would be liquefying right now, but he is just using this as high-grade fuel. He sits down to focus his mind, condensing the toxic chi into a single, highly concentrated sphere, absorbing the green energy directly into his meridians, converting the raw environmental poison into pure, usable internal energy. His body glows with a bright green light as the breakthrough officially begins. Hours pass in absolute silence as he circulates his energy. He opens his eyes, having completely memorized the chemical makeup of the spores to make an antidote later. He realizes that this earth actually has way more interesting and varied poisons than the ancient Murim. He remembers the feeling of helplessness from his past, remembering when he was too weak to stand and had to be carried away like dead weight. He focuses his power one final time. The energy condenses into a perfect, glowing green pearl of chi. Breakthrough successful, stage 4 of the poison art is officially unlocked. He stretches his arms, feeling the immediate surge of raw physical stats. He stayed in the mountains longer than expected, but he got the upgrade and the antidote recipe. He packs his heavy gear, ready to head back to Gurye. But he has a weird feeling that the local pharmacy cartel has been busy while he was away. He finally arrives at Baek's drugstore late at night. He drops his massive backpack onto the floor with a heavy thud. He calls out for Mr. Baek, expecting the usual busy pharmacy crowd. Instead, he finds the shelves completely cleared out and the staff looking like they just watched their retirement funds vanish. Old man Baek looks up, visually exhausted, saying he was worried because he couldn't reach tae-ju by phone. Seo-yeon welcomes him back with a deeply stressed look on her face. tae-ju apologizes, explaining his phone was off for training, and asks why everyone looks like they are at a funeral. Baek reveals that the major drug companies suddenly pulled all their normal inventory and canceled their contracts. And to make things worse, the Autonomous Committee's drug department is demanding their secret antidote formula for a safety audit. Our guy instantly pictures the smug face of Jo Hoon-sok. Baek confirms this has the cartel leader's signature written all over it, using his political influence to run a hostile takeover. If they refuse to hand over the formula, the committee will ban them from selling the antidote entirely. tae-ju realizes the city officials are letting the cartel run the town's legal system. His eyes go dark as he decides there will be absolutely no compromise with these people. He looks at Baek and calmly tells him they are going to strike first. Baek is completely thrown off by the suggestion, wondering how they can fight the government. tae-ju smiles, telling him that if the city claims the antidote has side effects, they should just pull the shutters and stop selling it immediately. So, instead of panicking, our guy is currently hosting a massive barbecue at the orphanage. A giant chunk of meat is slowly roasting over the open flame. The entire yard is filled with kids eating happily while their business is supposedly going under. tae-ju takes a big bite, and his brain basically short-circuits. It turns out the meat of the toxic deer tastes like absolute heaven. Since the poison is normally impossible to remove, only the emperor gets to eat this stuff. tae-ju realizes that creating the antidote was the best business move he ever made. He originally wanted the antidote to keep hunters alive, but now he has a monopoly on a multi-billion-won culinary delicacy. He watches the kids devour the food, realizing he can sell the meat for an insane profit. He might even use this luxury food to get a direct audience with the emperor himself. Old man Baek clears his throat, interrupting our guy's business fantasies. He thanks tae-ju for bringing such high-grade meat for the kids to enjoy, but he is still stunned that tae-ju turned an absolute ecological hazard into a delicious dinner. He asks if they are really just going to leave the pharmacy closed without responding to the cartel. tae-ju takes another bite of steak and tells him to just trust the process. He grins, asking who is actually going to suffer if they stop selling the only working antidote in Gurye. Cut to the streets outside the closed pharmacy 5 days later. The local hunters are losing their minds because they cannot go on raids without the medicine. Rumors are spreading that the pharmacy was shut down by the committee due to safety concerns. One of the veteran hunters gets furious, knowing the cartel is just running their mouths to steal the formula. Draws weapon, blocks the hit, shatters the blade, and Jung-hak stands tall. Jiang coldly tells the crowd to disperse, stating the ban is official committee policy. The hunter argues that he took the clinical trials himself and is perfectly fine. The crowd joins in, demanding proof of any side effects from the masterclass warrior. Jiang smile goes completely cold. His aura flares as he asks since when did low-tier hunters think they could talk back to him. He tells them they are not even worth drawing his blade for, muttering about how annoying this political gig is. The crowd immediately backs off, leaving only one poor guy standing in the middle. Our loyal hunter Park Jin-soo realizes everyone else ran away and left him alone. Jiang glares at him, asking if he has the strength to back up his attitude. Jin-soo immediately turns around and runs for his life. Jiang sheathes his blade, annoyed by the whole situation. He mutters that he does not care about the medicine, but Jo Hoon-sok is getting way too comfortable manipulating the committee. Meanwhile, a clean white luxury car is parked across the street. Jo Hoon-sok is inside on his phone laughing about how perfectly the plan is working. He notes that even if Jiang is a master, he is outnumbered on the committee. He tells his contact that the next phase of the operation is already starting. He boasts that Bayek's drugstore will be dead in a week unless a fortune drops out of the sky. And right on cue we cut to a desk engraved with a familiar name. Lieutenant General Oh Jin-young is sitting in his military office, reviewing reports. Tae-ju is sitting across from him, casually offering to supply 1 million units of the antidote for 50 billion won. General Oh Jin-young just stares at him in dead silence. Tae-ju starts sweating a bit, wondering if the general thinks 50 billion won is too expensive for a military contract. The adjutant whispers that the commander is actually in an incredibly good mood right now. The general looks at Tae-ju, asking if he is actually making a profit at such a low price point. He immediately turns to his assistant, asking if they can cover the amount from their reserve funds. He orders a 50% deposit transferred immediately, but Tae-ju says there is one more item in this contract. He mentions that since he is launching a major pharmaceutical company, he recently developed a new medicine. He pulls a wrapped package out of his pocket. He sets it down, inviting the general to try it. General Oh Jin-hyung opens the paper, completely confused. He looks at the perfectly marbled steak sitting on his desk. He admits he has been trying to cut down on meat for health reasons, but this looks high grade. Tae-ju smiles, casually dropping that it is spore poison water deer meat. The adjutant's eyes pop out, recognizing the legendary imperial delicacy. Tae-ju takes a sip of his tea, completely unfazed by their reaction. The general looks at him with deep respect, asking if our guy wants to re-enlist in the army. Tae-ju's face goes blank as he remembers how terrible the military contract system actually is. Meanwhile, on the remote outskirts of the Sawan Empire, we check in on the Jurisan Demonic Beast Defense Legion. Their official mission is to keep the monster population levels from overflowing, which basically means they get all the danger and none of the imperial budget. General Oh Jin-hyung was basically in despair when he was first posted to this barren wasteland, but then a literal miracle dropped right into his lap in the form of a spore poison water deer antidote. His adjutant steps into the office, saluting perfectly, and reports that the massive down payment transfer to Tae-ju has been officially completed. He explains that Tae-ju's sudden willingness to trade with the military was due to his conflict with Gurye's corrupt pharmacy cartel. Jin-hyung smiles, telling his adjutant to keep a close eye on Tae-ju and provide him with absolutely anything he needs. He praises his officer for standing by him even when they had lost all their political connections in the capital. The adjutant almost tears up, remembering all the years of suffering they endured in this frozen outpost. And then Jin-young suddenly grabs his officer by the shoulders, screaming his name. He has officially lost all his military composure. He shouts that they are going to use this 50 billion won contract to climb all the way to the imperial court. The office door is literally shaking as the two grown military men hug and scream, "Long live Kim Tae-ju," down the hallway. Meanwhile, we cut to Tae-ju's massive new villa on the outskirts of Gurye. The construction is moving fast, and the interior looks like a luxury corporate headquarters. Old man Bayek is sitting across from Tae-ju, reading the morning papers and noting that the legal paperwork for their new company is progressing smoothly. Tae-ju smiles, noting that the military contract was a massive success. It turns out General Jin-hyung even leaked the scoop about their new drug to the press, setting the perfect stage for their official corporate launch. Tae-ju asks if Bayek used the initial 25 billion won deposit to clear the pharmacy's outstanding debts. Bak grins, admitting he paid off every single loan and immediately closed their accounts at that hostile local bank. Tae-ju tells him he did well, instructing him to use the remaining funds to expand their facilities and support the orphanage. Then, Tae-ju leans forward, admitting he has been thinking about this a lot and knows he cannot run a massive pharmaceutical empire by himself. He looks Bayek dead in the eye and asks the old man to officially partner with him. Bayek is completely stunned, stammering that he has only ever run a tiny street pharmacy and won't be much help in a corporate war. Tae-ju shakes his head, pointing out that he only knows how to synthesize the medicine, but has absolutely no interest in managing sales or personnel. Bayek is deeply moved, sweating a bit as he realizes Tae-ju genuinely respects his business mind. He agrees to join, suggesting a standard 9-to-1 share split, with Tae-ju taking 90% of the company. But Tae-ju raises his hand, refusing the offer, and insists on a 7-to-3 split. He deadpans that if Bayek does not accept 30%, he will not launch the company at all. Bayek accepts with deep gratitude, but admits he is too old to handle the daily management. Fortunately, he knows someone far more capable. He brings up Bayek Seo-yeon, the smartest child raised at his orphanage, whom Tae-ju met once during a supply delivery. He explains that she is currently working in the capital and holds a highly prestigious business position and offers to call her down immediately. Tae-ju smiles, realizing Bayek's true power is the network of successful professionals he raised over 20 years. He shakes Bayek's hand, welcoming anyone with actual talent into their new venture. Tae-ju declares the company's official name will be Taehong Bio, fusing Tae from Tae-ju and Hong from Hong Pyo. Bayek suddenly mentions that he has also called in a couple of former orphanage residents to serve as Tae-ju's personal bodyguards. Tae-ju is completely confused, wondering why he would ever need guards. Bayek explains that Gurye's pharmacy cartel is highly corrupt, and a guy like Jo Hoon-sok is bound to use physical violence once he realizes he is losing the market. Tae-ju crosses his arms and chuckles, telling him to send the guards to protect the orphanage instead because he is perfectly fine. Bayek looks at him with deep skepticism, wondering what kind of secret backing Tae-ju is relying on to act this confident. He notes that Tae-ju has no rank tattoo on his face, meaning he is not an awakened, and is likely just relying on his past experience as a regular soldier. Tae-ju catches his look and sighs, pointing out that it is about time they built some actual trust between partners. He stands up, walks over to the coat rack, and grabs his custom Siberian fox coat. He tells Bayek to call those bodyguards in right now. He explains that he wants to personally prove his abilities and test the spore poison antidote on an active run. He smiles, declaring they are all going on a test hunt together in the mountains. Shortly after, we cut to the dense, mist-covered forests of the Jirisan demonic beast border zone. The team of bodyguards is walking through the deep brush, following Tae-ju. The young vanguard, Bak Chang-hoon, is staring at Tae-ju's back, whispering that the 4 billion won custom coat looks absolutely dazzling, but he is still highly concerned about Tae-ju's lack of a facial rank tattoo. He steps forward, placing a gloved hand on Tae-ju's shoulder. He introduces himself as an awakened swordsman and tells Tae-ju to stay behind him because demonic beasts appear from this point on. Tae-ju turns around with a calm smile and tells the kid to just call him Hyungnim. Chang-hoon is startled, sweating a bit as he notes Tae-ju looks way older than him. He tells Tae-ju to stay close, insisting that his awakened combat capabilities are far superior to a regular porter's. Tae-ju just stares at him, in dead silence. Chang-hoon immediately gets nervous, apologizing if his words sounded arrogant. Tae-ju chuckles, telling him he is used to it and knows the kid is just worried because he is unawakened. He reaches into his jacket, his fingers wrapping around his hidden weapons. He tells Chang-hoon they should probably settle the issue right in front of them before they chat any further. Chang-hoon looks up, and his face goes completely pale as dozens of red eyes ignite in the dark canopy above. A pack of crimson-eyed storm weasels screeches and lunges directly at them from the trees. The elite beasts swarm the group, moving with terrifying speed. Chang-hoon draws his katana, his hands trembling as he realizes they are facing a massive pack of high-tier predators. But Tae-ju is already moving. He steps in front of the kid, his eyes flaring with a dangerous purple-green glow. He slips a massive handful of iron pegs between his fingers, and alongside them he pulls out several heavy textured steel spheres. He channels his toxic chi into the metal, executing the Tang clan's rapid throwing art. He launches the rain of pear blossoms and iron pellets. The weapons strike the incoming beasts, triggering a series of massive purple and white explosions that shake the entire forest. Chang-hoon is left standing with his mouth wide open as the blast wind washes over his face. The storm weasels, known for their coordinated pack attacks, are shredded by the toxic shrapnel before they can even touch the ground. In a single fraction of a second, the entire pack of high-tier magic beasts has been completely deleted. Tae-ju casually brushes the dust off his hands, looking completely unbothered. He mutters that running into a pack of weasels right at the start of their run was highly annoying. He grumbles that he didn't even have time to draw his custom daggers, which are much easier to retrieve. He looks back at the terrified guards, noting that he had to use his anti-personnel hidden weapons to wipe the pack out quickly so they wouldn't get hurt. He looks out over the smoking craters, sighing as he calculates the sheer cost of the 200 unrecoverable iron pegs he just threw into the dirt. He clicks his tongue, desperately wishing his poison art was at the 7th star so he could automatically summon his weapons back to his hand like a proper magnet. Chang-hoon is practically trembling, swallowing hard, and asks if tae-ju is secretly a masterclass hunter who figured out how to hide his facial rank tattoo. tae-ju casually walks past him, telling him he is definitely not an awakened, and says he is taking the lead from now on. Chang-hoon is left standing in the dirt, completely unable to process how a regular civilian just pulled off military-grade damage. He follows behind, his eyes filled with absolute awe as he wonders what kind of monster he is actually guarding. Shortly after, they spot their actual target through the thick brush. The spore-poisoned water deer is grazing peacefully near a mossy rock. The fanged beast perks its ears up, sensing their presence. Chang-hoon whispers, asking tae-ju what the tactical plan is for dealing with the toxic spores. tae-ju smiles, pointing out that the beast looks smug because it knows other monsters cannot touch it due to its poison humps. He pulls out several bottles of his newly synthesized antidote and hands them to the guards, telling them to drink up because they are the ones hunting it. The guards look at the bottles in absolute confusion, wondering if he is being serious. Chang-hoon looks at the label, sweating as he notes the water deer antidote is still in its clinical trial phase. But he clenches his fist, remembering that tae-ju is already partners with his father and just demonstrated god-level strength. He pops the cap and chugs the entire bottle, deciding it is time to prove his own worth as a guard. He draws his blade, telling his team to cover him with their mana rifles if the beast tries to run. He takes a deep breath, his sword gleaming under the sunlight as he prepares his strike. Charges straight ahead, shrieks of the beast echo, releasing the purple spores, slices cleanly from above, and cuts the deer in half. The two pieces of the beast fall heavily into the dirt. The female sniper screams at them to watch out because the toxic humps are about to blow. The humps explode, releasing a massive wave of highly concentrated purple poison gas over the entire party. The gas completely covers the clearing, but the guards are standing in the middle of it, coughing slightly from the smoke but completely unharmed. tae-ju stands on the edge of the clearing, noting that the antidote's physical performance in the field is actually quite excellent. He looks at Chang-hoon, thinking that while the kid's physical sword skills are still highly lacking, he has some genuine guts. The female sniper laughs with relief, shouting to her commander that she is completely fine. Chang-hoon smiles, deeply relieved that the antidote worked perfectly against Gurye's most feared ecological toxin. tae-ju walks into the clearing with his hands in his pockets, pointing out that once you strip away the poison, the deer is basically just an ordinary weakling. The guards immediately swarm tae-ju, bowing and apologizing for ever doubting his medical genius. tae-ju tells them to stand up and prepare their gear because they are heading deeper into the forest to continue the grind. He looks back with a sharp grin, telling them to butcher the carcass and pack the meat, because once this antidote goes public, these deer are going to be hunted to absolute extinction for their flavor. Meanwhile, we transition to the glittering skyline of the Sawan Empire capital, New Seoul. We zoom into the towering glass skyscraper of the Murim Group headquarters, one of the empire's dominant mega conglomerates. Inside their high-tech corporate office, dozens of employees are hard at work in their cubicles. A manager walks up behind one of the desks, calling out to the section chief. A beautiful, highly poised woman turns around. This is Baek Seo-yeon, the youngest section chief in Murim's strategic planning department. Her boss, Deputy Manager Jeon Joo-hak, smiles sinisterly as he asks if she was raised at Baek's orphanage under Director Baek Hong-pyo. Seo-yeon's face goes still, wondering why her corporate boss is suddenly asking about her family in Gurye. Joo-hak chuckles, his eyes gleaming behind his glasses as he tells her to drop every single project she is currently working on. Seo-yeon is completely startled by the sudden command. Joo-hak leans in, his smile turning incredibly predatory as he instructs her to travel down to Guro and secure a highly valuable asset for their group. The corporate sharks of New Seoul have officially caught the scent of taehong bio's new medicine, and they are preparing to move in for the kill. We left off in New Seoul, where Deputy Manager Joo-hak is busy offering Seo-yeon a classic corporate blackmail deal. He drops a newspaper on her desk, smugly pointing out that her father's pharmacy is partnered with Gurye's newest startup, taehong bio. Seo Yan plays it completely cool, admitting she has read the news about their massive military contract. Ju-hak folds his arms, accusing her of pretending to be clueless when her father's shop is literally a subsidiary of a multi-billion won monopoly. He tells her to go down to Gurye immediately, stick close to her father, and secure the antidote's secret manufacturing formula. Seo-yeon stares at him, realizing this bald corporate parasite is literally asking her to betray her own family and act as an industrial spy. Before she can give him a piece of her mind, her phone starts buzzing on the desk. It is her father calling, which is the perfect excuse to ignore her boss's rambling. She picks up the phone, completely tuning Ju-hak out as she talks to old man Baek. Ju-hak stands there with his arms crossed, checking his watch and looking extremely annoyed. Seo-yeon smiles warmly, tells her father she will see him soon, and hangs up the phone. Ju-hak adjusts his glasses, asking if she has finally made her decision. She stands up, looks him dead in the eye, and tells him she will indeed go down to Gurye. Ju-hak smiles, thinking his blackmail worked perfectly, and starts talking about the details of the operation. But before he can finish his sentence, she rips her corporate ID badge off her neck and slams it onto his desk. She flashes him a massive, cheerful smile and announces she is officially quitting this garbage company. She walks right past him, pointing out that he is incredibly short yet always looking down on others, and asks who he thinks he is telling her to betray her father. Ju-hak is left screaming down the hallway like a cartoon character, shouting that she is just a worthless orphan, while she casually walks out without looking back. Meanwhile, we cut back to tae-ju's massive new villa on the outskirts of Gurye late at night. Inside the storage room, the orphanage guards are busy packing up the spore-poisoned water deer meat. Tae-ju steps in, thanking everyone for their hard work today. He tells them they did great on the run and instructs them to head back to the orphanage to get some rest while he handles the paperwork. Chang-hoon is startled, pointing out that his father specifically ordered them to act as Tae-ju's personal bodyguards. Tae-ju crosses his arms, asking if they still think he needs protection after witnessing him delete a pack of weasels in a fraction of a second. Tae-ju explains that Gurye's citizens would riot if anyone touched the orphanage, but they still need to keep a close eye on old man Baek. Because in a lawless free city like this, there are always crazy bastards willing to play dirty. Tae-ju stands at the entrance, waving goodbye to the guards as they head down the mountain. He watches them leave, thinking that having loyal people like them in Gurye is his greatest asset. He walks back inside, noting that once they set up Taehong Bio's infrastructure, he will finally have the time to cultivate and develop new formulas. He reflects on his journey. He originally just wanted to make a decent amount of money and settle down. But things have gotten significantly larger than he ever planned. He steps into the elevator, heading up to his private floor, realizing that making massive amounts of cash is not a bad thing at all. He walks down the empty hallway, thinking that owning his own home feels strangely peaceful. He hangs up his custom gray coat. He remembers being born as a worthless mono reject in Paju, nearly killed by his stepmother before his soul fused with Tangunak. He lies down on his bed, realizing that despite all the turbulence, the biggest gain from his survival was meeting good people. He looks out his massive glass window, deciding Gurye is going to be his starting point to stand proudly on his own 2 feet. Suddenly, the low sound of a lock clicking echoes from downstairs. A dark shadow steps onto his terrace. This is Ma Sang-shik, Gurye's premier slum gang leader. Sang-shik looks at the massive mansion, muttering that a newcomer buying up real estate in his city is acting way too big. His subordinate points out that Tae-ju's mosquito antidote is a massive hit, and his new deer antidote is coming out soon too. Sang-shik smacks his subordinate's head, yelling that he already knows that. His face goes dark as he mutters that if it weren't for Jo Hoon-sok's direct request, he would have kidnapped Tae-ju and taken the formula for himself. He waves his hand, telling his men to move in because they rely on YJ Pharmacy's drug supply to run Gurye's underworld. They use a lockpick and a flashlight, quietly opening his terrace doors. They creep up the stairs in absolute silence. Sang-shik whispers, telling his men to immediately inject Tae-ju with the highly addictive drug the moment they step into the bedroom. They slowly slide the bedroom door open. A dark silhouette steps into the room, holding a heavy syringe filled with a glowing purple liquid. The shadow approaches the bed where Tae-ju is supposedly sleeping. The giant thug raises the needle, preparing to strike, pounding downward with full force, but a hand catches his wrist mid-air. Tae-ju casually opens his eyes, those neon green pupils glowing in the dark as he tells them he has been expecting them. Sang-shik is startled, shouting at his giant thug to hurry up and force the needle in. The giant thug is sweating, desperately trying to push down, but he realizes he cannot move his hand a single inch. Sang-shik is completely confused. Tae-ju uses phantom preview footwork, disappearing from the bed in a green flash. The thug looks around, his head spinning as he tries to find where the target went. tae-ju is suddenly standing behind them, casually spinning the syringe on his finger, and tells them he absolutely hates needles because they hurt. The thugs back off, trembling as they ask Sang-shik if this guy is actually supposed to be a weak mana reject. tae-ju looks at the purple liquid, wondering if the drug's properties will be weaker if he just swallows it directly through his mouth. Sang-shik sneers, calling him a lunatic for thinking he can survive swallowing highly concentrated narcotic poison. tae-ju tilts his head back, opens his mouth, and pours the entire purple liquid directly onto his tongue. He tosses the empty syringe onto the floor, and as the toxic components hit his bloodstream, his eyes flare with a bright purple-green chi light. He smiles, telling the terrified gang leader that this poison actually has a great effect, and asks if they brought any more. There have always been rumors that Gurye's drug trade was run by a violent slum gang. Since the self-governing committee never shut them down, it was obvious someone high up on the standing committee was protecting them. But to tae-ju, drugs are just another form of poison, and with his cultivation at stage 4 of the absolute poison spirit art, neutralizing them is child's play. He places a hand on the head of the kneeling gang member, channeling his toxic chi. He absorbs the highly concentrated drug residue directly out of their bodies, refining it into pure energy for his own poison core. tae-ju looks down at Sang-shik, calmly telling him it is his turn to reveal who sent them. Sang-shik backs away in absolute terror, stammering that he will be murdered if he talks, but tae-ju offers to make him a new person right now if he refuses. The massive villa lights up green as a blood-curdling scream echoes out into the night. The next morning, we cut to Gurye's main highway. Inside a sleek black luxury sedan, Gurye's militia captain Lee Jong-hak is looking out the window. His lieutenant reports that Kim Tae-ju, the developer of the mosquito antidote, filed an official break-in report. She explains that the Ma Sang-shik gang got caught trying to kidnap tae-ju, and tae-ju wants the militia to handle the investigation to prove they can be trusted. Jeong-hak presses his hand to his forehead, cursing Jo Hoon-sok for botched underhanded tactics. He notes that while tae-ju is just a low-profile newcomer, Baek Hong-pyo's reputation in Gurye is too clean and too high to ignore. He realizes that if this turns into a drawn-out public conflict, the militia's corrupt connection to the pharmacy cartel will be exposed. He looks out the window at tae-ju's mansion, deciding there is only one permanent way to handle this. tae-ju and Old Man Baek are standing outside their villa, looking down at the 4 tied-up gang members kneeling in the dirt. Sang-shik is drooling, his eyes completely white as he begs tae-ju to give him more drugs. Draining his toxic energy basically put him in a horrific state of permanent withdrawal. The heavy gates click open as Master Lee Jong-hak walks into the courtyard, flanked by his elite militia guards. Old Man Baek welcomes them, thanking the militia captain for arriving so quickly. But Jong-hak does not even look at him, coldly telling the old man to move out of his way. He walks up to Sang-shik, who is still whimpering about drugs. Jong-hak tells everyone to step back, his face going completely blank as he looks down at the gang leader, draws his katana, blocks the sunlight with a flash of cold steel, and tae-ju's daggers meet his blade mid-air. tae-ju is holding his phone, playing a clear video recording of Ma Sang-shik confessing that Jo Hoon-sok ordered the kidnapping. Tae-ju asks the master why he is trying to execute a key witness in a public courtyard. Jong-hak grits his teeth, recognizing tae-ju as that powerless porter brat from Mint, Jiri, and asks who he thinks he is. He notes that tae-ju is just a low-rank rejector hiding behind a stolen antidote. Jong-hak glares at him, his hand gripping the hilt of his katana as his masterclass aura starts to flare. He steps forward, asking if tae-ju genuinely thinks his little tricks are supposed to impress a master. He points his blade at tae-ju, completely dismissive of his strength. tae-ju stands his ground, his expression completely calm. Jong-hak remembers seeing this brat bowing his head on Mint, Jiri just a couple of weeks ago. tae-ju's eyes narrow, his gray pupils burning with green light. He opens his custom coat, his hands slipping inside the dagger loops. Jong-hak smiles, asking if tae-ju is the one who actually formulated the antidote. He walks closer, his electrical aura crackling around his body as he boasts that his word is law in Gurye. He raises his sword, his lightning aura flaring with terrifying force. He offers tae-ju a final deal, let him execute these 4 gang members, and they can walk away. tae-ju flatly refuses. Jong-hak lunges forward with a blinding slash. tae-ju uses phantom preview footwork, dodging back as the shockwave rips through the stone floor. tae-ju counters, launching 3 custom willow leaf flying daggers in a rapid green flash. Jong-hak deflects them, but the speed of the throw catches him off guard. The air splits as the daggers are sliced out of the sky. Jong-hak touches his cheek, realizing tae-ju actually managed to put a small scratch on his skin, and his face goes completely purple with rage. He prepares his ultimate lightning strike, declaring that obstructing a master carries an immediate death sentence. Tae-ju does not back down, mockingly asking if masterclass warriors are actually supposed to be impressive. Slashes with lightning, leaps into the sky, aims more daggers, but a heavy roaring wind interrupts them. A massive military helicopter descends over the courtyard. Lieutenant General Oh Jin-young jumps out of the chopper, landing like a superhero in a three-point stance, and tells Lee Jong-hak that is far enough. If you ever wanted to know what absolute, unadulterated backup looks like, this is it. Our hype man Lieutenant General Oh Jin-hyung doesn't just arrive, he drops from a military helicopter in a designer tracksuit like he's about to shoot a luxury sportswear commercial. And his timing is perfect, because things were about to get extremely messy down here. He steps onto the pavement, and you can already tell the vibe of this entire courtyard has shifted. Jong-hak is trying to play it cool, asking what a high-ranking military commander is doing meddling in a free city's business, but Jin-young just gives him this smirk that basically says, "I own this airspace, little man." Jong-hak is visibly grinding his teeth. He is used to being the biggest fish in Gurye, and right now he is looking at a shark. Jin-young shrugs it off, claiming he is not even here on official military duty today, he's just here as a private citizen. A private citizen who happens to have a military helicopter and an entire squad of elite soldiers behind him. Sure, he waves Jong-hak off, telling him to mind his own business and keep moving. At this point, Jong-hak looks like he's about to bite through his own tongue. Jin-hyung completely ignores him and walks straight over to Tae-ju, shaking his hand like they're old high school buddies. The contrast here is hilarious. You have Gurye's terrifying vigilante captain getting completely iced out while our unawakened guy is getting treated like royalty. Jin-hyung looks at Tae-ju and immediately asks if anyone touched him, demanding names. And just to make sure there is no confusion about who is running the show, he introduces his entourage. Meet Major General Gu Jun-young, a masterclass division commander who looks like he bench presses light tanks. Next is Major General Park Pil-seong, another masterclass fighter who looks like he's lived through 3 different apocalypses and won all of them. And finally, Major General Hong Jun-tae, who is also a masterclass commander and looks oddly eager to brew someone a toxic tonic. Jong-hak is doing the math in his head right now, and the numbers are looking incredibly bad for him. He is looking at 4 military masters standing in a line, laughing and treating this whole situation like a casual barbecue. Realizing he is completely outgunned, Jong-hak decides to take the biggest L of his career and announce his departure. But Jin-young isn't done playing with his food yet. He tells him to stay a bit longer and chat. Jong-hak snaps back, saying he's actually a busy man with a city to run. Jin-young just lets out a slow laugh. Jong-hak asks him what's so funny. Jin-young points over to Ma Sang-shik's gang and says if the local militia is too busy to clean up the garbage in Gurye, his military division is happy to send in some actual troops to do it for them. Jong-hak insists he can handle his own street gangs, turning around to leave with his sword drawn. But Jin-young's voice drops all the warmth. "Leave the dogs here. They're coming with me." Jong-hak is sweating now, reminding him that the military isn't supposed to get involved in local criminal matters. Jin-hyung steps right up to him. He doesn't care about local jurisdiction. He cares about the fact that these absolute clowns tried to kidnap the guy who makes the military's only working Monster Zone antidote. Jong-hak tries to throw some imperial edicts around, hoping the emperor's laws will save him. And that is the exact moment Jin-hyung decides to stop being polite. His red, crackling masterclass aura flares up, and the entire courtyard starts shaking. Jong-hak's eyes go completely wide. The sheer pressure is making his knees buckle. Jin-hyung asks him a very simple, very terrifying question. If he were to cut Jong-hak's head off right here, what kind of punishment does he think the emperor would actually give a high-ranking military hero? Spoiler alert, none. The military is too valuable. Jong-hak is physically paralyzed, unable to even twitch his hand toward his sword. The other military commanders are just laughing in the background, asking if they should take him out right now. It is peak high school bully behavior, but when it's happening to a corrupt politician, you love to see it. Jong-hak's subordinates are swallowing hard, realizing they are one wrong move away from becoming collateral damage. Jong-hak finally folds completely, ordering his team back to the car. Jin-hyung watches them drive off, muttering that Gurye has been worshipping this guy way too much. Tae-ju steps up and thanks him for the save. Jin-hyung just laughs it off, saying they're already in the same boat. He's got 50 billion won riding on taehong bio, so of course he's going to protect his investment. Old man Baek walks up, coughing politely to introduce himself and thank the general. Jin-hyung asks if he's alright, showing that underneath all that military arrogance, he actually does respect the people working with Tae-ju. Tae-ju admit it was a close call, keeping his tone casual despite the absolute circus that just unfolded. He looks over at the shivering gangsters. They thought they were getting executed by Jung Hak, but now they are in the custody of the military. It's like escaping a wet cardboard box only to fall straight into a wood chipper. Jin Young places a heavy hand on tae-ju's shoulder. He offers to take care of the gang and the mastermind behind them, but tae-ju flatly refuses, stating this is personal business. Jin Young warns him that if these guys disrupt antidote production again, it's a national security issue. But he respects tae-ju's drive and agrees to let him handle the final retaliation. tae-ju watches the soldiers work, but his mind is still on Lee Jong-hak. He recalls the moment his throwing blade nicked the master's cheek. He's analyzing his own power, wondering if his stage 4 poison really isn't enough to bypass a masterclass defense. He remembers how Jung-hak didn't show a single sign of being poisoned during the fight. He realizes that if the general hadn't arrived, he might have had to expose his true Murim trump cards to survive. The conclusion is simple. He needs to get much stronger. He cannot rely on luck or timing next time. The military helicopter takes off, carrying the captured gangsters away for a very private interrogation. Meanwhile, inside a luxury car speeding down the highway, Lee Jong-hak is clenching his chest in absolute agony. He looks down at his hands, specifically at the tiny scratch tae-ju gave him earlier, and right before his eyes, glowing green, toxic veins start pulsing under his skin. He is gritting his teeth, realizing this is not a normal physical wound. This is high-grade, corrosive poison. The green light spreads rapidly up his arm, burning through his mana channels like liquid fire. By the time it reaches his neck and face, his entire complexion has turned a sickly, glowing green. He looks like a discount green goblin who is having a very bad day. His subordinate looks in the rearview mirror and panics. Jung-hak screams at the driver to get him to a hospital immediately. All that masterclass pride is completely gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated terror. The car swerves violently as it speeds toward the city center, and Jung-hak is left gasping for air in the back seat, realizing that the unawakened piece of trash he tried to execute has just handed him a slow, agonizing death sentence. We open high in the clouds, where the military helicopter is currently flying over the jagged mountain peaks of Jiri. Inside, Ma Song-shik's gang is currently shivering in their boots, while Oh Jin-young and his commanders stare them down with absolute indifference. One of the gangsters is desperately crying, promising to confess to every single crime he's ever committed if they just spare him. But Jin-young just smiles, telling him there's really no need. They already have the video confession tae-ju recorded, and honestly, the military doesn't do paperwork for street trash. He looks over at General Jun-tae. Jun-tae stands up, grabbing the heavy metal handle of the helicopter door. He slides it wide open, letting the freezing high-altitude wind howl through the cabin. The gangsters are screaming, begging for mercy as they realize there are no police stations or trials waiting for them at the end of this ride. And just like that, they are tossed straight out of the helicopter. No drama, no long speeches, just pure, brutal military cleanup. If you're going to try and kidnap a national security asset, you should probably expect a high-altitude exit. Jun-tae slides the door shut and dusts his hands off. Cleanup's done, Jin-young nods, ordering his men to make sure Jo Hoon-sok is taken care of as well. The other generals agree. The local pharmacy cartel is officially about to discover what happens when you try to run a monopoly against the imperial military. Jin Hyung adjusts his collar. He's determined to lock down his alliance with tae-ju. This kid isn't just a business partner, he is Jin Young's fast track to a promotion in the high command. Meanwhile, far away in New Seoul, a beautiful woman with a short chocolate brown bob cut is walking through a busy train terminal. Her phone buzzes, showing an incoming call from Bak Chang-hoon. This is Bak Seo-yeon, the strategic prodigy we've been waiting to meet. She picks up, telling him she just got off the train and is heading to Gurye. She listens to the phone, her eyes widening in absolute shock as Chang-hoon starts explaining what's been happening in Gurye. He's telling her that this unawakened guy, tae-ju, has poured billions of won into their orphanage, founded a massive pharmaceutical company, and successfully created an incurable poison antidote. Seo-yeon is highly skeptical. The last time she saw tae-ju, she thought he was just another low-tier scammer trying to exploit her father. She hops into a taxi, telling Chang-hoon she'll see him at home. She tells the driver to head straight to Baek's orphanage. As the taxi drives down the forest highway, Seo-yeon is deep in thought. She realized her father didn't just call her back to Gurye for a family visit, he's trying to place her at the head of a medical empire. The taxi pulls up outside the gates of Baek's orphanage, and when she steps inside, she is greeted by a massive outdoor festival. There is music, children running around laughing, and a giant cauldron bubbling over an open fire. Her father, Old Man Baek, turns around and lights up when he sees her. Seo-yeon smiles warmly, hugging her father and telling him she'll always come when he calls. Bayek pats her shoulder, looking incredibly relieved to have his smartest daughter back home. She asks what they're cooking, and Bayek proudly explains they are currently boiling spore-poison roe deer meat for a celebratory feast. Seo Yeon is completely stunned. Spore-poison roe deer is an imperial delicacy that normal hunters can't even dream of harvesting safely. She realizes everything Chang-hoon said on the phone was actually true. This isn't a small-town drugstore anymore. Baek grabs her hand and leads her through the crowd, pointing out that tae-ju is currently waiting over by the food stands. And there is our guy, Gurye's richest man, wearing his luxury fur-lined trench coat while serving hot soup to orphan children with a gentle smile. Talk about a massive contrast to the guy who was liquefying gangster internal organs last night. Baek introduces them. Tae-ju smiles warmly. Miss Baek, Seo Yeon? Nice to meet you. We get a quick flashback of their brief meeting in the drugstore, where she treated him with cold corporate suspicion. Seo Yeon blushes slightly, apologizing for being so rude back then and asking him to take care of her from now on. She promises to use her corporate expertise to help grow taehong bio into a proper global enterprise. Tae-ju is satisfied, he's got the power and the formula, but he needs a professional to run the day-to-day operations so he can focus on his cultivation. Suddenly, the heavy sound of synchronized marching boots echoes through the orphanage gates. Tae-ju turns around, his eyes narrowing slightly. A clean-cut military officer steps forward and delivers a crisp salute. Major Do Min-soo and 20 elite soldiers have just been officially assigned to serve as permanent security for Taehong Bio. Tae-ju is amused, welcoming them but noting that they might not have enough rooms in the orphanage for an entire military platoon. Major Do smiles, shaking Tae-ju's hand with deep respect. He explains they brought their own field camping gear and are fully prepared to sleep in tents just to guard the facility. And then Major Do spots the bubbling cauldron of roe deer meat, his eyes practically sparkling. He immediately declares he will stake his life on protecting Tae-ju. Yes, our guy has just successfully bribed a military officer with high-grade mutant meat. Major Do barks orders to his men, telling them to drop their packs and get ready to eat. Tae-ju watches the soldiers mingle with the children and Seo Yeon. For the first time in his entire life, he feels a quiet sense of peace. He's spent 29 years running as a sickly, despised outcast. But now, he isn't alone anymore. He's got his own faction, his own fortress, and his own army. But while things are peaceful at the orphanage, the mood inside Gurye's private inner castle is absolutely freezing. Inside the self-governing committee meeting room, Jo Hoon-sok is sitting alone at a massive table, looking like a man who has just been handed a death warrant. A panel of shadow judges is listing his crimes, price-fixing, threatening small pharmacies, and illegal lobbying. And with a trembling voice, Hoon-sok is forced to acknowledge all the charges. He walks down the opulent hallway, gritting his teeth in absolute rage. He realized his political allies took his money for years, but the second the military stepped in, they cut him loose like a diseased limb. To make things worse, Ma Sang-shik has vanished, and Tae-ju is still breathing. His face is twisted in fury as he realizes his entire medical empire is crumbling in a single day. He walks into the dark parking garage heading toward his luxury car. He knows he can't fight the military, so his only option is to run. He convinces himself that if he just lies low in a different territory for a few months, things will quiet down on their own. He speeds out of the castle at night. The luxury sedan drives down a deserted highway running alongside a deep coastal cliff. Up ahead, a lone traffic light turns red. Hoon-sok looks in his side mirror and spots the bright headlamp of a motorcycle approaching fast from behind. The motorcycle pulls up right next to his driver's side window. Hoon-sok turns his head, confused, and in a split second the motorcyclist draws a heavy metal rod and smashes it straight through the window, striking Hoon-sok directly in the face with a sickening crunch. Blood splatters across the dashboard as Hoon-sok loses consciousness, his foot slamming hard onto the accelerator. The luxury car swerves violently, smashing through the guardrail and flying straight off the edge of the massive cliff. The car plunges into the dark river below, sinking into the deep water. The mysterious motorcyclist stands at the cliff edge, speaking coldly into a radio to confirm the target has been silenced. Well, Lee Jung-hak is currently in a high-tech medical ward, convulsing like his veins are being pumped with liquid neon. His subordinate bursts through the door holding a sleek black briefcase. He reveals a glowing gold box containing a top-grade elixir from Murim Pharmaceuticals. Jung-hak looks like a zombie claws deep in withdrawal, demanding the cure immediately. He shoves the glowing golden pill into his mouth without even chewing. A massive swirl of pure red mana ignites in his chest. He smirks, thinking modern corporate science has officially saved his life. Except his chest suddenly erupts into a violent web of green fracturing light. He collapses, spitting black blood and realizing tae-ju's poison is actively feeding on the elixir's mana to grow stronger. Meanwhile, completely unbothered by the political drama, our guy is deep in Mount Jiri. He's looking for the giant moon bear's gallbladder to expand taehong bio's medicine catalog while keeping an eye out for new toxins. He notes his core is already on the verge of breaking through to the 5th star. He spots a toxic sap tree and casually samples the brown ooze with his finger. He decides it tastes sweet and is actually a pretty high-grade poison. Then he finds a blue-bellied fire toad hanging out on a leaf. He grabs it bare-handed and stuffs it into his pocket for future research. Suddenly, a massive whitewood giant centipede lunges at his face. tae-ju doesn't even flinch, letting the monster sink its fangs directly into his forearm. He notes the venom has a nice fresh taste before his system completely neutralizes it. A rustling sound in the bushes catches his attention. He spots a glowing V-shaped mark in the deep foliage. 2 glowing orange eyes stare back at him. It is the giant moon bear, looking like a raid boss that wandered out of a Dark Souls level. The beast lets out a massive roar, unleashing a purple shockwave of raw gravity. tae-ju's eyes go cold, eager to see just how durable this monster actually is. He slips 4 custom-made willow leaf daggers between his fingers. He launches them with a high-speed throw. But the bear casually slaps the daggers out of the air like they are annoying flies. tae-ju notes the beast's reaction speed is incredibly high. The bear lunges forward, tearing the earth apart with its claws. Our guy flickers across the battlefield, leaving green afterimages in his wake. He reappears behind the beast, launching another volley of daggers directly into its back. The blades spark and bounce off its thick hide, barely leaving a scratch. He closes the distance and drives his fist straight into its side. He triggers the blood seal poison palm, but the kinetic impact barely sways the massive beast. The bear swings its giant arm, cleanly cleaving 3 massive forest trees in half. tae-ju uses his phantom footwork to dance around the claw strikes, analyzing the situation. He realizes his standard physical strikes can't penetrate this level of defense. The bear is significantly stronger than a typical expert rank hunter, and his stage 4 poison core is struggling to keep up. He takes a deep breath, realizing he has to force a breakthrough right here. He reaches into his tactical pocket and zips it open. He pulls out the blue fire-bellied toad and casually pops it into his mouth like a piece of candy. A massive tidal wave of concentrated toxic chi surges violently through his meridians. His eyes ignite with a brilliant neon green flame as his dantian successfully refines the energy. The surrounding forest erupts in a massive pillar of green light as he officially reaches the 5th star. tae-ju smiles, his gaze locking back onto the giant bear. He reaches inside his Siberian fox fur coat and releases his newly unlocked stage 5 hidden weapon, the blood butterfly. The daggers transform into glowing green butterflies, fluttering gracefully through the air. This technique allows him to telekinetically control the physical trajectory of his weapons using pure internal energy. The green butterflies suddenly swerve at impossible angles, driving straight through the bear's eyes. They sink deep into its skull, delivering a lethal dose of stage 5 corrosive poison directly to its brain. The giant beast stands frozen for a long moment, blood pouring from its face, and then it crashes heavily to the forest floor, dead. tae-ju steps forward, pulling out a small dagger to begin the harvest. He cleanly slices through the beast's thick chest cavity. He reaches inside and pulls out a glowing golden-orange organ pulsing with high-density mana. It is the bear's gallbladder, carrying a toxic profile that would kill any ordinary doctor trying to handle it. He wraps his hands in a protective layer of green toxic energy to prevent the mana from evaporating. With the harvest complete, he tucks the golden organ away and prepares to head back to the laboratory. Meanwhile, up in the clouds of the immortal realm, Tang Gunok is currently enjoying a cup of tea on a wooden balcony. The other ascended immortals are whispering in the background, completely fascinated by his stylish modern beard and tailored robes. Sword Immortal Dongbin is gritting his teeth, absolutely furious that Gunok has managed to monopolize all the cool Earth-style guides. Gunok just takes another slow sip, completely ignoring their jealousy. He smiles smugly, knowing they will never be able to replicate this level of drip. He looks down into his teacup, where a small holographic image of Earth is swirling. Back in the modern world, tae-ju's prototype elixir is officially finished. He looks at 3 tiny, glossy black pearls sitting on a porcelain tray, noting the refining process was surprisingly difficult. In this world, elixirs are valued by their pure mana crystal content, and 100% pure elixir can instantly raise a hunter's rank. But since he used cheap wild herbs and only a fraction of the bear's gallbladder, he turns to his sleeping guard, Chang-hoon, to act as a test subject. Chang-hoon wakes up with a start, rubbing his eyes and asking if the medicine is done. Tae-ju casually hands him one of the black pearls, telling him to give it a try. Chang-hoon stares at the pill, deadpanning that it looks suspiciously like rotten rabbit poop, but since he trusts our guy completely, he swallows it in one gulp. Tae-ju asks how it feels, and Chang-hoon blinks, saying he doesn't really feel anything yet. And then a massive explosion of brilliant blue mana erupts directly from his feet. The light is so intense it literally shoots through the glass windows of the research building, lighting up the gurye night sky. The blue energy swirls around Chang-hoon's face, his body undergoing a massive physical restructuring. A blue system window appears before his eyes, confirming his rank has officially increased to beginner. He stands there, completely frozen as the leftover mana particles drift around his shoulders. Tears of pure joy start streaming down his face as he realizes his lifelong bottleneck has been shattered. He screams that his rank increased, looking at Tae-ju like he's a literal god. Tae-ju is internally sweating, completely shocked that such cheap ingredients yielded 100% efficient elixir. Chang-hoon panics, asking if he needs to sign a permanent slave contract to pay off something this valuable. Tae-ju tells him to calm down, assuring him that the raw ingredients actually cost pocket change. But he needs to verify if this was just a fluke unique to Chang-hoon's body. He points a finger and tells Chang-hoon to go bring a friend. Chang-hoon looks confused. Tae-ju specifies he needs a mana-compatible kid from the orphanage, someone who is smart, kind, and incredibly discreet. He flashes a mischievous smirk, declaring that good things should always be shared with friends. A few minutes later, the laboratory door clicks open. A polite young man named Jang Sun-cheol steps inside, bowing respectfully to introduce himself. Chang-hoon introduces him as a smart kid who just arrived from the orphanage yesterday, and Tae-ju welcomes him warmly. Tae-ju holds out another black pearl, telling him to swallow it. Sun-cheol also notes it looks like rabbit poop. Chang-hoon loses his mind, screaming at him for disrespecting a legendary high-grade medicine. Sun-cheol shrugs and tosses the black pearl into his mouth, and once again a massive pillar of blue mana erupts from his body, shaking the entire laboratory floor. The system window pops up, confirming that the unawakened kid has officially awakened as a hunter. Chang-hoon's jaw drops as he points at Sun-cheol's face. Sun-cheol touches his cheek, feeling the warm, glowing lines of a fresh rank tattoo forming on his skin. Chang-hoon leaps on him, celebrating while Tae-ju watches them with a flat expression. Our guy realizes this situation is actually incredibly dangerous. An elixir that can instantly awaken ordinary civilians with a 100% success rate is a cheat code that would start a global war if anyone found out about it. He decides he absolutely cannot sell this prototype, choosing to dilute the formula into a lesser medicine called the Yosangdan cheating pill to sell instead. Sun-cheol steps forward, his face dead serious. He drops to his knees, bowing deeply and pledging his complete lifelong loyalty to Tae-ju. He clenches his fists, screaming that he will do absolutely anything to repay this debt. Tae-ju is a bit overwhelmed, but hey, a free, fanatically loyal awakened subordinate is a win in any book. Meanwhile, cut to the northern jungle of Mount Jiri. Oh Jin-hyung's elite troops are currently hunting in the monster zone wielding massive axes. Thanks to Taehong Bio's 12-hour antidote, the soldiers are easily clearing out the toxic zones without taking a single casualty. A pair of polished leather shoes steps into the clearing. The field commanders report that they have secured 5 spore-poison water deer, praising the absolute efficiency of the antidote. Oh Jin-young is standing tall, looking incredibly pleased with his business investment. He orders his troops to load the harvested deer and prepare to head back to the military base. He watches them load the trucks, his mouth literally watering as he dreams about grilling the legendary imperial-grade meat. He's already planning to hide the best cuts deep in his personal refrigerator so he can savor them slowly. It's a very wholesome dream for a terrifying military commander, but unfortunately, life is about to throw him a massive curveball. A slow round of applause echoes from the edge of the forest. Jin-young turns around, his face instantly turning pale with shock. A prestigious elderly man dressed in an immaculate white suit and fedora steps out of the shadow. Meet Jeom Suho, court secretary of the Sahan Empire and a masterclass hunter who serves as the emperor's right hand. Suho releases a suffocating dark red aura that instantly paralyzes Jin-hyung, calmly stating he is here to take the legendary deer back to the capital. Jin-hyung is sweating bullets, forced to swallow his pride and agree that there is absolutely no problem. Suho laughs, mockingly thanking him for doing such a great job harvesting the emperor's new dinner. He turns his back to leave, but suddenly stops. He drops his head, asking Jin-hyung why he went too far and tried to execute Gurye's vigilante captain, Lee Jong-hak. Jin Hyung is utterly flabbergasted, protesting that he didn't even touch the man during their confrontation. Suho stares at him, realizing from his genuine reaction that the general is telling the truth. He quickly adjusts his hat and tells Jin Young to find out what happened on his own, hurrying away before the conversation gets more awkward. Leaving Jin Young standing alone in the clearing, utterly terrified and completely confused about who actually cooked the city's strongest hunter. Our hype man general, Oh Jin Young, is sitting in his luxury office looking like a man who just had his lunch money stolen. He is sweating, begging tae-ju to cook up some more spore poison antidotes before the official launch, but tae-ju is just sitting across from him, looking incredibly calm. He takes a slow sip from his porcelain teacup, telling the general he makes all the medicines by hand. He sets the cup down with a soft click, advising the military to wait a few months for their massive factory to finish. And then he drops the ultimate pay-to-win bomb: if there are people who absolutely cannot wait, he will sell them early access sets for 10 million won flat. Jin Young practically jumps out of his leather chair, pointing out that the retail price was only 500,000 last time. Tae-ju just shrugs, explaining there was a very specific reason he priced the initial batches so cheaply. We get a quick flashback of his conversation with Old Man Baek and Seo-yeon. Old Man Baek wanted to keep the prices low to save ordinary citizens during beast waves. But Tae-ju notes that the people trying to buy the pre-orders right now are different. He takes another sip of tea, explaining these wealthy brokers just want to hoard the deer meat, resell the antidote at a premium, or reverse engineer his formula. Jin Hyung is sweating, realizing he has been completely read. So for the greedy corporate sharks, the price is 10 million won with zero room for negotiation. Jin Hyung folds instantly, agreeing to pass that massive price tag along to his connections. Tae-ju decides it is time to discuss the main corporate product. He opens a wooden chest, revealing the taehong recovery potion, a strategic item that can instantly heal internal organs and restore mana. Jin Young doesn't even wait for the explanation, declaring he believes in the medicine completely. Tae-ju is just staring at him, completely unamused. Jin Young starts nagging him to re-enlist again, promising to petition the emperor himself to give him a massive military rank. Tae-ju is literally trembling with absolute unadulterated rage. He slams his hand onto the coffee table and screams at the general to get out, declaring the entire deal is officially off. The military is out here trying to draft our guy like they are a desperate college football coach. Cut to the grand reopening of Baek's pharmacy under the new name, Taehong Drug Shop. There is a massive crowd of eager hunters gathered outside, pushing and shoving to get inside. A giant promotional sign advertises the new spore poison antidote and the recovery potion. Hunters are whispering, highly skeptical that a medicine can actually restore both mana and heal physical organs. And then our favorite micro-influencer, Park Jin-soo, steps up with a cocky grin. The hunters ask him who he is, and he proudly announces he is the legendary OG tester who put Kim Tae-ju on the map. He struts inside and is greeted by the counter girl, who casually states his total is 5 million won. Jin-soo's face instantly deforms in absolute shock. He stands there in complete silence, realizing he just bragged to the entire street and now has to pay a fortune to save his pride. The girl politely hands him the price list. Yep, 5 million won flat. Jin-soo is sweating bullets, asking if anyone has actually bought it yet. The girl beams, telling him he gets to be the very first buyer in Gurye. With everyone watching, Jin-soo has to swallow the L and buy it anyway, shouting that he'll take a recovery potion to show off. Later that night, we cut to Tae-ju's apartment. The board members are sitting around a conference table. Seo-yeon reports that their first day's sales were absolutely legendary. She smiles, noting that it is mostly thanks to Park Jin-soo's accidental marketing stunt. We see a quick flashback of Jin-soo returning to the shop, crying tears of joy as he buys a massive mountain of boxes to show off to other guilds. Old Man Baek is chuckling, mentioning he was so impressed he even gave the poor guy a 20% discount. Seo-yeon notes that while the launch was a massive W, their current production pipeline is struggling to keep up with the demand. They need to expand their retail footprint and acquire more stores. Fortunately, they have a massive 10 billion won budget earned entirely from selling pre-order antidotes to the military. She looks at Tae-ju, thanking him for bringing in such a massive amount of starting capital. Tae-ju smiles, admitting he didn't expect wealthy brokers to actually pay 10 million won per set either. Seo-yeon decides it is time to establish their official corporate positions. She announces Old Man Baek will serve as the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer. She will take the role of CEO, the Chief Executive Officer, and Tae-ju will serve as the Supreme Chairman of Taehong Bio. Tae-ju is a bit flustered, complaining that chairman sounds way too old for someone his age, but he sincerely thanks them for helping him get this far. They share a warm, wholesome moment. Suddenly, the high-tech apartment intercom rings. tae-ju looks at the screen, finding Park Jung-tae, the vice guild master of Nogadon, sweating and crying into the camera. We get a shot of the building under the starry night sky. Tae-ju goes down to the courtyard, asking what brings him here this late. Jung-tae bows deeply, apologizing for his past arrogance during their first meeting. He drops to his knees, desperately begging our guy to save his guildmaster. Tae-ju calmly walks toward their black sedan parked on the street. He opens the passenger door, finding Gurye's strongest hunter looking like a decaying corpse. Jong-hak is gasping for air, admitting everything was his fault and begging for a cure. Tae-ju just stands there, looking down at him with cold, absolute indifference. If you want to live, get out and kneel. He bows his head in absolute pathetic surrender, begging to be saved. He admits that no modern hospital treatment or premium Murim elixir could stop the green rot eating his veins. Tae-ju looks down on him, asking a very simple corporate question. What benefit does he get if he decides to save his life? Jung-hak looks up, promising to cooperate with anything and serve as Tae-ju's personal sword. Tae-ju flatly refuses, declaring he has absolutely no use for a broken sword, but he offers to think about it on one condition. Jung-hak's eyes light up, desperate for any lifeline. Tae-ju tells him to focus entirely on Gurye's safety, stop playing petty political power games, and stay true to his duty as vigilante captain. He crouches down. He notes that if Gurye's safety structure collapses, it's bad for business. But he delivers a terrifying warning. If Jung-hak ever touches his family or the orphanage again, he will kill him. He places his hand on Jung-hak's head. Green, glowing energy flows into his skull, cleanly extracting the corrosive poison core back into his own palm. We transition to the grand completion ceremony of the taehong biofactory. Chairman Kim Tae-ju is standing at the podium answering questions from a massive crowd of reporters. A reporter in the crowd raises his hand and asks a very suspicious question. For the sake of world peace, does he have any plans to reveal the secret formulas for his new medicines? Tae-ju's eyes narrow, asking who asked that ridiculous question. The man introduces himself as reporter Kang Do-chil from Unha Daily. Tae-ju instantly realizes this is a corporate hitman hired by the Murim Group to sabotage their launch. The reporter suggests cooperating with Murim Group's manufacturing facilities, but Tae-ju cuts him off, stating it sounds like he is just telling him to hand over his IP to a competitor. The reporter starts sweating bullets, trying to backtrack, but Tae-ju doesn't play corporate politics. He squeezes his microphone and boldly announces that even if they manage to steal the formula, they could never copy it, because only taehong bio carries the Murim alchemy required to make it work. Later that evening, we cut to Tae-ju's apartment. Tae-ju pulls out a chair to sit down. Seo-yeon is checking her tablet, apologizing for the petty reporter. Tae-ju tells her it is fine, asking how the general public is reacting to the new medicines. She smiles, showing him the screen. Hunters online are treating the recovery potion like an RPG full heal item, declaring it basically gives you an extra life in the monster zone. The spore poison antidote is also causing a massive rush on water deer meat, with restaurants scrambling to secure supplies. Tae-ju smirks, highly pleased with the market reaction. Seo-yeon notes that while the hype is massive, they can't acquire any new properties in Gurye to expand their retail shops. She slides her finger across the tablet. Except for this one. She points to the bankrupt pharmacies owned by the family of Jo Hoon-sok, who recently had his accident. Tae-ju asks if they have enough money to buy them out. Seo-yeon explains they do, but the legal inheritance battle between the family members is incredibly complicated. Tae-ju's face goes completely blank. A slow, devious smirk forms on his lips. He looks at her and tells her to go to the Nogadon Guild and meet Lee Jung-hak. He assures her that the vigilante captain will be incredibly kind and handle all their legal problems. Seo-yeon is completely flabbergasted, wondering why Gurye's most arrogant master would help them. We get a quick time skip montage. Seo-yeon is sitting in Jung-hak's office, and Gurye's terrifying captain is sweating profusely, serving her tea with absolute submissive politeness. Thanks to his enthusiastic help, taehong bio successfully acquires 11 new stores, establishing 12 taehong drug shops across the city. Their 3 signature products are officially dominating Gurye's medical market. Monthly sales pass a massive 100 billion won, allowing them to build a second factory and hire over 500 employees. Best of all, Tae-ju trains Chang-hoon and Sun-cheol in basic Murim manual cultivation, allowing them to manufacture the elixirs in 2 shifts. Our guy is out here running a fantasy sweatshop. But then, one peaceful night, Sun-cheol is walking through the dark, empty streets of Gurye's poorest slum, Chilhuk-dong. He is on the phone with a crying mother, searching for a missing orphanage kid who vanished after a beast raid. He spots a familiar object lying on the dark pavement. He picks up a dirty sneaker, realizing it is the exact custom shoe he bought the kid as a birthday present. Suddenly, a massive, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes materializes behind him. Suncheol senses the danger and barely dodges a massive swipe. He immediately retaliates, driving his fist forward with his penetrating force martial skill. His fist connects with the shadowy figure's head with a heavy impact, but the attacker doesn't even budge. The dirty shoe drops back to the ground. Suncheol looks down, realizing his sleeve has been cleanly shredded by razor-sharp claws. The shadowy figure stands tall, a dark, suffocating aura swirling around its shoulders. Suncheol realizes this opponent is leagues above him. He turns around and runs. He sprints down the dark alleyway as a massive shockwave of energy explodes behind him. He turns his head, his eyes widening in pure horror. The shadowy monster instantly leaps ahead of him, displaying terrifying long red claws, a razor-toothed smile, and long flame-like hair. We open under a full moon outside the quiet ward of Gurye Hospital. Jang Suncheol is lying face down in a medical bed, covered in heavy bandages. Chang-hoon is standing over him, crossed-armed and highly annoyed that Suncheol decided to play the hero alone. Suncheol explains a mother from the orphanage contacted him because her son had vanished in the slums. Chang-hoon sighs, pointing out that they are partners now and should always back each other up. The sliding door opens with a soft click, and tae-ju walks into the room looking calm. Chang-hoon reports that while Suncheol was brutally attacked, his life is fortunately not in danger. Tae-ju pulls back the medical sheet to inspect the wound himself. 3 massive smoldering claw marks are sliced deep across Suncheol's back. Tae-ju's eyes narrow, instantly realizing these aren't weapon cuts. This was done by a monster. He asks where the attack took place. Suncheol sits up, explaining it happened deep inside Gurye's moon village. Tae-ju demands more details, knowing it is theoretically impossible for a wild monster to bypass the city's defenses. Suncheol explains he was searching the dark streets when he found the kid's shoe. He was suddenly ambushed from behind, and even his newly acquired martial arts couldn't pierce the attacker's defense. He was forced to run for his life, taking a massive claw strike to the back as he escaped. Tae-ju pats his shoulder, telling him he made the right decision to retreat. Chang-hoon begs to tag along for the investigation, but Tae-ju raises a hand. He tells him to stay behind and guard the hospital room, as they still don't know the full strength of the opponent. Chang-hoon grits his teeth, internally frustrated that he still isn't strong enough to stand by his boss's side. Tae-ju turns and walks out, determined to handle this problem personally. Under the cold moonlight, our guy enters Gurye's moon village. He steps quietly down the stone stairs. He locates a massive pool of dried black blood on the concrete. He looks up, spotting 3 deep claw marks ripped into the concrete wall. He touches the wall, confirming the claw pattern perfectly matches the wounds on Suncheol's back. A voice suddenly echoes from the top of the stairs. "Excuse me." A bald, muscular punk wearing a red jacket steps out, sporting a cocky grin and a vertical scar over his eye. The punk steps down, asking if he's a resident of this neighborhood. Tae-ju keeps his tone flat, stating he's just visiting. The punk smirks, asking why a stranger is wandering around a dark slum at night. But Tae-ju isn't listening. His nostrils flare as a wave of disgusting, foul energy hits him. His eyes go cold, recognizing the unmistakable stench of the demonic cult from his ancient Murim memories. The bald punk offers to guide him through the complicated streets. Tae-ju stops walking, staring at him. He realizes that in this modern world, the media calls these creatures demonic humans. They are humans who actively consume other people to absorb their mana and artificially boost their ranks. His green toxic chi starts flaring around his eyes as he asks a very direct question: "How many have you devoured?" The bald guy's grin vanishes, realizing his cover is completely blown. He lets out a dark chuckle and his physical body begins to undergo a horrific monsterization. In a flash, he transforms into a massive pitch-black demon with glowing red eyes and flaming hair, his power level doubling. He snarls, declaring Tae-ju won't be leaving this alleyway alive. Tae-ju just sighs, completely unbothered, and asks if he was the one who touched his bodyguard. The demon screams, leaping high into the air with his claws extended. But Tae-ju is already gone, dodging the strike with a high-speed phantom step. He draws a custom dagger, executing a clean single flash. The blade slices effortlessly through the demon's thigh. The demon laughs, boasting that his monsterized body will regenerate from a minor cut instantly. But his smile freezes. The wound is sizzling with a green toxic flame, completely blocking his cellular regeneration. Tae-ju spins a toxic green sphere of energy in his hand, mocking his slow recovery. The demon panics, stepping back. Tae-ju drives forward, delivering a devastating blood seal poison palm strike directly to his chest, followed by 4 consecutive hits. The physical impact is massive, and the demon feels his internal mana being melted away in chunks. Realizing he is completely cooked, the demon unleashes a massive burst of dark energy. A giant explosion of dust and debris shakes the entire alleyway. Tae-ju stands calmly in the dust, watching the shadow flee into the dark. He purposely let him escape, knowing demonic humans operate like cockroaches. If you find one, there is always a nest nearby. This bleeding idiot is going to lead him straight to the rest of the pack. He pulls out his smartphone and casually files an official demonic human report on Gurye's municipal safety app under his own name. Meanwhile, at the Nogadon Guild office, Vice Master Park Jong-tae bursts through the doors, panting. Guildmaster Lee Jong-hak is rubbing his temples, groaning about another local murder case. Jong-tae hands him the tablet, showing the official report filed directly by Chairman Kim Tae-ju. Jong-hak leaps out of his leather chair, screaming at his men to mobilize Gurye's entire vigilante force to protect his godlike boss immediately. Under the dark Gurye night sky, we cut to an abandoned warehouse in the hillside village. The bald demon, Cheon Choryang, is crawling on the dirty concrete, gasping for help. Two men turn around with sharp, angry expressions. Wang Anpong, a red-haired giant, and Siap Widong, a pale swordsman, ask what happened to him. Choryang is trembling, crying that a monster is currently hunting him down. A shadow falls over the doorway and Tae-ju walks inside, his hands casually tucked in his trench coat pockets. So there were more cockroaches after all. He stands in a swirling aura of green fire, asking which one of them touched Suncheol. The two older brothers just laugh, assuming they have him cornered. The swordsman smiles, asking who the hell Suncheol is. Tae-ju smirks, clarifying he's talking about his bodyguard. Choryang spits blood, laughing that his big brothers will eat him alive. But before he can finish his sentence, Tae-ju snaps his fingers, launching a green spike of toxic chi directly through Choryang's skull, instantly ending him. Tae-ju casually wraps his hand in a swirling green mist. The two remaining brothers are frozen in shock, unable to believe their expert-rank younger brother was deleted so easily. Siap Widong swallows hard, noting Tae-ju has no facial tattoo, wondering if he is looking at a hidden master. He tries to play it cool, suggesting there has been a massive misunderstanding. Tae-ju steps forward, pointing his foot at a pile of personal belongings, wallets, bags, and phones scattered on the floor. He asks what exactly is the misunderstanding when the entire floor is covered in the remains of the innocent people they devoured. His eyes go cold, muttering that demonic humans really are identical to the cultists of the Murim world. He glares at them, declaring he's just going to beat them to death. The red-haired giant, Wang Anpong, roars, his hands transforming into massive black claws. He undergoes a complete monsterization, transforming into a massive scaled demon and charging. Tae-ju's eyes tracking the movement. Phantom preview. He flickers through the air like a ghost, dodging the claw strike. The giant demon swings wildly, screaming in frustration. Tae-ju draws 3 custom willow leaf daggers and launches them with a high-speed spin. The daggers bite deep into the demon's chest. The giant demon smiles, thinking his regeneration will save him. But Tae-ju is already in front of him, driving his glowing green hand directly into his throat. The demon spits a fountain of black blood as the poison enters his system. Tae-ju slams him into the concrete. He stands over him, calmly explaining he just injected a mixture of energy-scattering poison and spore poison into his body. The demon begins convulsing on the floor, his green veins glowing as his internal organs literally start melting away. Tae-ju tells him to writhe slowly in pain and die. The pale swordsman, Siap Widong, decides he wants absolutely no part of this fight and flees out the back door. He sprints up the Rocky Mountain Trail like an Olympic athlete. He is terrified, realizing his red-haired brother was equal to a middle expert and got deleted in 10 seconds. Suddenly, a sharp slicing sound echoes behind him. He screams as 3 green glowing daggers sink deep into his back. He feels his legs going completely numb but continues to crawl toward a cave entrance. He reaches inside his coat and pulls out a heavy, high-tech tactical gas mask. Tae-ju walks up to the dark cave entrance, looking curious. He notes they had a second hideout hidden deep in the mountain. He steps inside, keeping his hands in his pockets. Suddenly, a massive rumbling sound echoes as the cave entrance collapses behind him. Widong stands in the darkness, wearing his gas mask. He mocks Tae-ju for being so persistent. He pulls out 2 red metal canisters, boasting that consuming human mana is the only true way to gain power. Tae-ju spots the canisters, wondering if he is holding a modern chemical weapon. Widong throws the canisters, screaming at him to die. The canisters pop, releasing a dense, swirling cloud of bright green toxic gas. Tae-ju stands in the cloud, covering his mouth as his eyes go wide. So it was poison after all. Widong laughs through his mask, explaining it is called enhanced sarin gas, and even a masterclass hunter will melt in minutes if they inhale it. But Tae-ju's expression isn't one of fear. It is pure, unadulterated joy. Even the legendary Tangunok has never tasted a modern, man-made biochemical poison before. He takes a deep breath, absorbing the dense green gas directly through his lungs. The toxic compounds flow through his bloodstream, heading straight to his poison core. His dantian ignites like a miniature sun, the raw chemical energy triggering an explosive reaction. The entire cave lights up with a blinding green flash as he successfully breaks through to the 6th star of his poison cultivation. Tae-ju drops to one knee, playing dead inside the smoke. Wudong steps closer, mocking him for dying so quickly, and in a fraction of a second, the green smoke splits. Tae-ju lunges forward, grabbing Wudong by the throat. He smirks, his gray eyes burning with green fire, and asks, "Aren't you hot?" He rips the tactical gas mask right off Wudong's face and holds him high in the air as the green sarin gas rushes into Wudong's unprotected lungs. Wudong's flesh instantly begins to dissolve, his skin melting away in a horrific green liquid as he gasps for air. Tae-ju tosses the skeletal corpse to the floor, grumbling that the guy died way too quickly. The gurye slums are clean, but our guy has just unlocked the power of a 6-star poison master, and things are about to get infinitely more chaotic. The cleanup crew finally arrives at the cultist headquarters. As usual, the authorities show up exactly when there is absolutely nothing left to do. They are currently excavating the backyard, and let's just say the local real estate value in this neighborhood is about to hit rock bottom. The sheer volume of victims these demons processed is finally coming to light. General Oh Jin-young is looking at the crime scene and is visibly fuming. He is a battle-hardened military veteran, but seeing his own citizens treated like livestock by a bunch of cultists hits different. Lee Jong-hak is standing right behind him, looking like a student who just got caught trying to skip class. He is officially apologizing because his guild was supposed to be monitoring this district. And then we have our guy. Tae-ju is just standing there looking like a high-end fashion model, completely unbothered by the giant, rotting demon corpse melting into the concrete right next to him. Oh Jin-young turns around and asks the obvious question. How exactly did an unawakened civilian manage to solo 3 high-tier demonic humans without leaving a single scratch on his expensive coat? Tae-ju gives him that classic, cold-eyed main character side-eye. He casually mentions that he made sure the demons had a very long, very painful learning experience before they stopped breathing. The general just nods. When the local pharmaceutical CEO is significantly more terrifying than the entire standing army, you don't ask follow-up questions. Tae-ju starts walking away but stops to drop a quick favor on them. He wants the military and the local guild to take 100% of the credit for clearing out this nest. He wants the official news report to say it was a joint tactical operation. Both of them look completely dumbfounded. In a world where hunters live and die for media clout, our guy is actively trying to dodge the spotlight. Tae-ju's logic is flawless. If the public finds out an unawakened reject single-handedly cleared a cultist base, his peaceful, quiet days of printing money are officially over. The general and the guildmaster exchange a quick look and immediately grin. Free political points and massive public praise for doing absolutely zero work. They are definitely not going to say no to that, but Oh Jin-young's inner monologue is running wild. He is trying to figure out how a rejector is casually bypassing the laws of biology to get stronger than master-class awakened warriors. Meanwhile, Lee Jong-hak is internally sweating bullets. He has already felt the corrosive poison core rotting his own veins once. If a guy who can delete 3 demons tells you to keep your mouth shut, you nod and ask if he needs a coffee. A guild subordinate interrupts their silent panic attack to show them the recovered items from the warehouse. It is a pile of identification cards and bus tickets belonging to the missing citizens of the outer districts. The general is shocked. These people were officially reported missing weeks ago, but the local municipal police did not even open a file. Lee Jong-hak bows his head again, taking full responsibility for the security failure, but his subordinate quickly jumps in to defend him. It is not a lack of effort. The Gurye Standing Committee has been systematically cutting their budget and blocking reinforcements to the outer zones. Oh Jin-young's face darkens. He knows exactly who is running this game, the corrupt elites who sit in the high castle while the slums actively burn. He mutters their names like a hit list, Min Dong-yeol and Ji Gwangin. The political water in Gurye has become completely stagnant, and the general is officially ready to flush the toilet. Tae-ju is already walking away. He does not do government drama, and he certainly does not do unpaid overtime. But the general stops him, saying he has a favor of his own to ask. Tae-ju's forehead immediately sprouts a giant vein of pure annoyance. He lets him know very clearly that he is still not re-enlisting in his army. The general laughs it off even though he has tried to recruit him about 15 times this month alone. But the general is not asking for a contract this time. He wants tae-ju to personally participate in the upcoming grand-scale campaign in Jiri. Tae-ju's eyes narrow. He asks why on earth a wealthy civilian businessman should risk his life in a high-tier subjugation zone. Oh Jin-hyung stands tall, radiating his massive master-class presence. He knows that with tae-ju's custom poison and elixirs, the military can finally clear the mountain and rewrite the power balance of gurye. A few days later, we shift to Gurye's central palace. This is the headquarters of the Special Autonomous Committee, where the real villains of this city spend their days counting money. Inside the VIP reception room, the quiet hum of central heating is the only sound as two politicians discuss their current dilemma. They already know the demon incident was quietly resolved, and they are not happy about the military gaining popularity. Meet Min Dong-yeol, the blonde chairperson of the Cheonwon Group, and Ji Gwang-in, the government official. They are currently looking at Taehong Bio's rising stock market charts and realizing our guy is becoming an absolute nuisance to their monopoly. Ji Gwang-in points out that if the upcoming Jiri subjugation succeeds, the military and the vigilante corps will have enough public support to completely kick the committee out of power. Min Dong-yeol casually sips her tea, looking like a corporate executive who just authorized a layoff. She states very simply that they must ensure the military campaign fails. Her plan is delightfully evil. If a massive wave of demonic beasts breaks out of the mountain, she simply will not open the castle gates for the refugees outside. After all, the rich citizens inside the walls are the only ones who pay taxes. Suddenly, the heavy double doors click open, and footsteps echo across the marble floor. Tae-ju strolls into the room with his hands casually stuffed in his pockets. He looks at both of them and notes that listening from the hallway, their complete lack of basic human conscience is actually kind of impressive. Ji Gwang-in jumps up, his face contorting in rage, demanding to know how a random citizen managed to walk past 3 floors of high-tier security guards without a single alarm going off. Min Dong-yeol recognizes him instantly, raising her hand to calm her colleague. But Ji Gwang-in is too busy being arrogant, dismissing tae-ju as a simple street pharmacist who got lucky with a basic recipe. She ignores her partner's outburst and asks tae-ju what could possibly bring Gurye's wealthiest supplier to a restricted government facility without an appointment. Tae-ju tells them he came to settle a very simple corporate negotiation before the military campaign officially starts. He reaches into his coat and pulls out a small glass vial. Inside the glass are 2 beautifully round, glowing dark green pills. He tells them to take one each. Ji Gwang-in looks like he's about to pop a blood vessel. Min Dong-yeol's corporate composure instantly cracks, her eyes widening as she asks if he is seriously trying to feed them poison. Tae-ju casually places the bottle on the expensive mahogany table. He tells them not to worry. As long as they cooperate, he will personally provide the antidote on a regular schedule. Classic organized crime tactics. Ji Gwang-in sneers, claiming that a couple of politicians are not going to be intimidated by a kid playing mafia. Tae-ju closes his eyes. He remembers what the general and the guildmaster told him during their quiet meeting. They told him that Gurye is on the verge of a total systemic rewrite, and they need to clear out all the rot before the expedition begins. The general was even willing to execute them quietly, just like they did with the old pharmacy cartel boss, Jo Hoon-sok. Tae-ju repeats this detail, and the smug look on Ji Gwang-in's face completely vanishes. Tae-ju's demands are simple. They will fully open the castle gates to the public, fund the military's defenses, and stop treating the outer districts like a human shield. His eyes flare with a terrifying radioactive green light, and the temperature in the room instantly drops. He did not come here to propose a business deal. He came to give them their final survival options. For a second, the room is completely silent. Then, Ji Gwang-in's mouth starts to twitch. He bursts into a loud, hysterical laugh, clapping his hands like he's watching a comedy show. He claims it is the funniest joke he has heard in years. He leans forward, his face turning incredibly dark as he asks Tae-ju if he seriously thought a couple of ruling elites would scare easily. Tae-ju does not say a word. He just stares at him with the absolute silence of a predator watching a rabbit run into a dead end. He mutters that the negotiations have officially failed. He reaches into his coat jacket, and both politicians flinch hard, bracing themselves for a flying dagger to pierce their throats. Instead, he pulls out a sleek modern smartphone. Min Dong-yeol lets out a long sigh of relief, realizing she is not about to get sliced. But then the phone rings twice, and a familiar voice comes through the speaker. It is Lee Jong-hak. Tae-ju casually asks him a simple legal question. If 2 prominent members of the standing committee suddenly turned up dead in their locked office right now, would there be an investigation? Lee Jung-hak's voice is crystal clear on the speaker. He says of course there would be an investigation, but the highly respected chairman of Taehong Bio would obviously be above suspicion. In fact, the guildmaster suggests it was probably a tragic demon retaliation. He even advises tae-ju to leave 4 or 5 deep claw-like marks on their torsos to make the crime scene look authentic for the police report. tae-ju tells him he appreciates the professional advice and hangs up. Ji Guangyin is frozen in his seat, a cold sweat running down his neck. Min Dongyul is trembling so hard her teacup is rattling. She turns to her partner and asks if he realized the head of the city's security just authorized their quiet execution over speakerphone. Taeju's hands begin to glow with a dense, crackling aura of emerald poison chi, forming razor-sharp claws around his fingers. He looks at them with a calm, gentle smile. 5 claw marks. Let's begin.